The goal is about the golfer, right? It's about helping them. It's about trying to get what I would just say is real information versus some of that influencer kind of gibberish nonsense that I never see in gears, right? Um, you know, I feel like I'm very smart, and I think the next piece to kind of keep pushing that kind of envelope is to squash the nonsense. Well, you don't have force plates. Kind of, sort of do, right? I'll squash that bug real quick, right? Because then I will have them. Now, what are you going to say? I know how to move. Why don't you show me your swing? Why don't you do what I can do, right? And then we can have a real conversation. But since you can't, maybe you should listen a little bit more. Because not only can I do it lefty, I can do it righty. So I think that has a lot of merit to what I teach, right? Again, because if you can't show it, can you really do it? Or is it really right? So I can do anything I want, change swings instantaneously, righty, lefty. I can create speed, not speed. I think how to create speed is a lot different than what people are kind of teaching. And I quite don't agree with some of the stuff that they're teaching in terms of the speed pieces. I think they're missing some important keys. And then, like I said, I need some ground force data stuff to kind of push back against some of the stuff. Well, how do you know? Because you don't have any ground force plates. Now I'm going to push back, and then I'm going to push back because I'm also not buying the stupid cheap ones. So then I'm going to be like, oh, so you have the cheap ones that are missing a lot of information, and you're giving me shit. I'm talking to you, okay? Because I don't buy anything. It's got to be really good.
Let's see. And yeah, the timer is counting. So I am live with Dennis Sales of Dennis Sales Golf. Dennis, it's a pleasure to have you on. I've been following you for some time. You got some great information. I think we're going to have a great discussion today, and people are going to learn a hell of a lot. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks for reaching out and having me.
The first thing I want to get into is you have a very impressive sporting career. I guess that's the term I'll use. From what I remember learning about you, you play soccer at a very high level. You played professionally, played hockey, I believe, at a Division I level, if I'm not
No, no, I
mistaken.
didn't. I had an opportunity to go to college to play hockey as well, but I,
Okay.
I, I chose to follow dad's footsteps and play soccer instead.
And that was the other thing. Your dad played professionally, so you have genetically you have you're gifted, to say the least.
I would
But
not say that. I wasn't born with it. Like I worked really hard at it.
yes, and
Right.
I want to talk about that a
Yeah.
little later.
Okay.
Um, but and the reason I think that's important is because some people will say, well, you don't have to be a great player to be a great teacher. And I say, no, you don't, but it can help. Like I always tell people, you don't have to be a great, you don't have an oncology surgeon that's great, like a Patrick Walsh up at Hopkins, did not have to have cancer in order to be a great surgeon. But if an individual was a very good athlete and realized the work put into it and what's going through somebody's mind while they're walking up this mountain, then it helps. And it can help quite a bit. So I think it's just another way to utilize things. But you have uh, and then you segued into golf. I think that's important to understand for a number of reasons because you do a fair amount of work with juniors, if I'm not
Mhm.
mistaken. You have a lot of success with juniors,
Yes.
and your soccer, hockey, golf, it spans a wide range of things. And in today's world, we have the helicopter parents that know Mike
Boy. Oh yes.
Junior. Yes, Junior sis is going to play golf from the time they're 9, and that's it. So how do you? I want to jump into the juniors a little bit because parents are listening, and people who have kids are going to listen. How do you work around that? Because some of these parents can be so hell bent on what they think versus what and they're bringing them to you as the expert. How do you work with someone like that? Given your history and your knowledge, you're very well educated on a lot of different things.
It's an education that everybody needs, right? Not only the player, but also the parents on kind of what's required. And then you can and I'll show them some data and stuff like that, information about LTAD and the importance of being a very well-rounded athlete, to having some explosiveness, some coordination, hand-eye coordination, right? Those things are really important at a really young age to develop, right? Um, I got a 9-year-old, I got a 5-year-old. They play a little golf, but a lot of times in here, like we're more focusing on the stuff that I grew up with. And I think a lot of, I'm getting old, right? I'm now 50. back when I was growing up, like my first organized soccer league, I think it was like 13, 14, right? Now they're starting this organization stuff at 6, 7, and then they want you to play year round. Back then we didn't have anything like that. So whatever was in season is what you played.
Yeah.
Right. So I come from the Northeast. So in the winter, there's no soccer. We didn't have indoor soccer back then. So I was like, okay, I got to do something. You know, Boston Bruins, my uncle's a big fan of them, and parents were a big fan of them. So let's go play hockey in the winter. And then when the summer came around, it's like, okay, I've got to go play something like dad played soccer. I want to be like dad. And like, I have a younger brother, but he is 5 years younger than me. By the time he got to that age, my dad was kind of past his prime already. So he didn't get to experience what I got to experience with him
Mm.
in terms of going to the club and then seeing them win championships, right? Seeing what, you know, the fans of the club would shower my dad with, right? As a professional and playing, I'm Portuguese, right? So, European soccer and stuff like that. Like, I got to see that. So I'd go to the club with my dad to go practice, and we'd be sitting at the bar, and I got to see things like that was like, oh shit, like I want that. I want that. I want that kind of notoriety. Like that's what I want. So that's what really started my drive in that sense. And then my dad would be like, hey, go look at Shalene, go look at Louise, right? And I'd be like, oh shit, like they get the same stuff. He's like, yeah. So a lot of times they'd go, they would go eat, and we would order, and then somebody would offer to pay the bill. And then, I learned a lot of, having respect and not taking advantage of people. And my dad would make me go there and go say thank you, right,
Yeah.
for
Very,
them.
very big, very important.
So we did that. And it was always like, your dad does a lot for the club, a lot of respect. Don't you ever ruin it. Right. So like I got things like during soccer games, I'd go to the bar, somebody would see me, they'd go cut the line, and they're like, okay, what do you want? I want water. And then they just give it to me, and somebody would buy it for me. And then like I had to go say hello, thank you. And I'm like, how the hell do I get around like 9 people to the front of the bar? And the guy's like, I just walk through the bar. So I go to the bar and I say thank you. I'd shake his hand, and then I'd leave. And my friends were like, how'd you do that? And they're like, go get me one. I'm like, oh hell no, man. My dad kicked my ass. No, thank you. That says not to abuse it. I just want water. I'll give you some wine, but that's about it. But there's a lot of respect in understanding that, you know, people rewarded you. It's like what you see with professional athletes now. And my brother never got to see that. So that's what I wanted. I wanted that because whenever we would go to those, Portuguese feasts and I'd be there with my dad, people never knew me, never knew my name. I was always Adolf Jr., right?
Mhm.
So it was my dad's name, Junior, or Little Adolf. That used to drive me nuts. Even when I was still 23, I was still freaking Little Adolf to everybody at that club, right? But I had carved out my own niche, but I was still never a dentist. That was the only thing that got me, but I was quite okay with it because my dad did a lot for that club. He did a lot for me, right? Establishing, some of those baselines in soccer, those opportunities in soccer, because a lot of those guys that were here had played out in Portugal and Spain and stuff like that were coming here. And like I would be at the club all the time, and at practices, my dad said I'd be sitting at the steps by the time he got home from work, and I had my bag, I had my soccer shoes on already, and then if he saw, you can't come to practice today, he said I would cry and run in the bedroom. So like that's what I wanted. I wanted that 24/7, right? But when I would go to practice with the guys, like the guys would just show me stuff, right? And this is one of the things that I think is wrong in the golf industry, right? They would show me the move, or I would ask them, hey, I saw you do that the other day. Can you teach me this? And then they would show me the whole thing, and then they would break it down. You got to do this. And then me, like, okay, well, what about this part? And like, yeah, but you screwed up this part first. You got to do this first. Yeah, well, what about this? I'll teach you that after you do this. Okay. So I'd have to show them the first steps of the move before I got anything else. Right. And then as they were all running, like sometimes I would run with them, other times I'd sit aside, the coach would give me some soccer balls and I'd be doing stuff and they'd all be like, look at him, he's still over there. And I'd be trying this guy's move and then I'd go to this guy's move, but I never tried to do the whole thing because after a little while I learned they're not showing me the rest of it until I did something right. And then they'd keep compounding the move. Then they would
Mhm.
show me more and more stuff. So when I got into golf, when I was 23, 24. I had to stop playing soccer because I was diagnosed with a mitral valve prolapse. So I was like, okay, well then at that time, I was playing professional. I was playing against like John Harkes, Lexi Lawless, Tony Miola, guys on the World Cup team. Following year, I had a chance for a tryout for the Revolution, I had a player come out, Ibu from France. He's like, hey man, I want you to go to France. He goes, you can go play over there, no problem, right? But that was when I was already diagnosed, and like a little of me was just like, you know something, man, like maybe I should just go, just so I can try to see if I could have played there, and then if I get in, just say, hey, I can't do it, right? But I was already not in prime shape, so I was like, man, I don't think I can do it like that,
Mm.
because I already had slowed down my training aspect of the fitness piece. So I was like, no, forget that stuff, right? Mm. But when I got into golf, like I said, when I was like 23, it was just never expected to be where I am now. It was always about when we were running, some of the guys were playing, and the crazy stuff that they were doing like made everybody laugh. And they're like, Dennis, you do nothing all day. Why don't you come with us? I'm like, man, I ain't playing golf. Golf's stupid. Like, no way. And those guys still give me a bunch of crap, right, about that stuff. But I got hooked. It was fun. And then it didn't make sense because then they were trying to help me. I'm just like, you guys stink. No.
Why would I listen? Why would I
Yeah,
listen
you
to
guys.
you?
Oh, just
Keep
just
your head
swing it.
down.
Just swing it. And it's like, dude, I can't hit the goddamn ball. Like, and then I'm like, well, like I didn't learn soccer that way. Like, same thing with some of my hockey coaches. Like, you had to, back then you're more stand-up goalie versus the butterfly stuff. We used to practice all day long trying to toe kick the puck out of the rink, and we would sit there for like a half hour doing it until we could do it. So it was always like you had to learn something before you got something else. So it was just like, right, that don't make any sense to me. Doing what you guys are saying, I'm going to do it my way. And then I would just sit there and make small swings, right? Trying to get the ball to go 50 yards, trying to hit it the same trajectory, right? Trying to land in the same spot until I could do it. My thought process was always like, take the bucket balls, walk out there. If I dropped it, not gonna be that small, but like threw it up in the air. I want the dispersion to be pretty small because that makes sense to me. And then from there, I'd make it longer and walk down the fairway more. So I used to do that stuff all the time. So I used to break it down into pieces before going at it full, right? So that's where I think in teaching, I think a lot of coaches don't take command of that, right? You got to focus. What I would say is establishing the concept in people's heads. You got to explain to them the model. From there, you have to build a model out, but you'd have to start someplace. So you'd have to control the bottom half of the arc first. And if you can't do that, you can't hit the ball solid. You can't produce consistent data points. You can't produce a good motion on video. You can't hit the ball to proper trajectories and get the landing descent and the landing spot tight. What's the point of hitting a 100-yard shot or a 150-yard shot, right? It makes no sense. And then I always use the analogy of, and a lot of it is because golf's not dangerous, right? Because you ever see those guys with the Red Bull where they jump off the
But
cliffs and
yeah,
stuff?
Red Bull's got the best
That
Instagram
stuff is
page
crazy.
online.
So like I always
Yes.
explain it in such a way as like, okay, so you come to me, you see that. You want me to teach you how to do those flips and stuff like that. So you come to me, I'm going to say, hey, see that door right there? That door is going to take you 300 feet up. I want you to do what you're showing me, and I'm going to record it and watch you. Go ahead, hurry up. Like I had a father and son here yesterday, and I'm like, you going to go up there? And the kid's like, hell no. I go, why not? He goes, I might hurt myself. I go, Dad, would you let him go up there if I was told him to go up there? He goes, oh, hell no, he might kill himself. I go, so then why is anybody trying to teach you driving and talking about PGA Tour driver speeds when you have so many other issues in your swing? He looks at me and he goes, oh, good freaking point. So they bypass the things that you need because nobody's patient enough anymore, right? They want instant gratification. They want to do whatever they want to do, but it's just like, it's not what you want to do. It's what you need. Good, because I don't give you what you want. I give you what you need, because most golfers, when they go practice, ain't doing what they need. They want to do what they want because they want to have more fun. But I'm always like, I remember playing pro soccer. Practice sucked. Playing and winning was fun. You guys want to go have practice and have fun, like a lot of the camps and programs, right? Oh, you want to go have fun. You're running around. You're doing all sorts of stuff. You're having a grand old time. Problem is you're not developing any kind of skill and you're not improving your technique. And to me, you got people saying skill trumps technique. It's like, are you on drugs? Your your technique sets the ceiling for your skill. And if you don't improve your technique, you can't improve your skill, right? And there would be certain anatomical relationships that we would want an impact, where a vast majority of golfers with their lead wrist, right? So that'd be dorsiflexion, that's palmar flexion. At impact, they're in dorsiflexion. Show me one, with the handle back. Show me one really good tour player that's got crazy amount of dorsiflexion with the handle back behind the golf ball. So that's technique. So their skill of low point and face to pad stuff is going to suffer. So if you don't change the technique, how do you improve the skill? So to me, it's about understanding and explaining to them what people need, not what they want. You give them what they need and you'll get them to places that they want to get to, right? You don't go to a doctor and the doctor tells you, hey, take this pill. I'm not taking it, right? You trust somebody. So everybody has a choice in terms of like who you want to take lessons and coaching from. But you have to have buy-in. If there's no buy-in, then there's not going to be any progress. And there's the
Yeah.
same thing like we talked about that student earlier when I stopped the assessment. I go, we need to have a conversation. I'm going to tell you what we need to do, and then you're going to have a choice. You can either go back and do the same thing that you've been doing, or we have to go down a different pathway. That's not my choice. That's your choice. I go, but I'm going to show you what you need to do versus maybe what you want or what he's been telling you for the last 5 months. And obviously, you can see that it's nothing like where really good golfers are, and the stuff that he's telling you to do, it's got nothing to do with your priorities, my friend. That's all I'm saying. And then, I had to sit down and I kind of explained everything to him. And I'm like, you have to make a choice now. Like, here is your information. You can take it back to the other guy if you like. That's up to you. But you have to make a decision on what you're going to do. But if you're going to go back to the guy, I promise you, my friend, like, you better tell him to start working on these keys or else it's impossible for you to fix anything.
You had mentioned, or I had mentioned DNA. Your dad was a very good professional athlete, and that you were. I didn't mean it to mean that you had a guaranteed line
Oh, yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
professional sports, but I just, as far as certain sport, like David Epstein's Range and the Sports Gene, I thought were exceptional books. If anybody's read those, they know what I'm talking about. But one thing I want that drives me absolutely crazy is when announcers on TV or whoever online, social media, whatever, say that somebody is ridiculously talented, and I said no, that is basic to me. And I know this is a harsh way to explain it, but just to kind of paint a picture for the listeners, saying that someone is merely talented and why they won is a big disrespect to the hard work that they put in.
Oh, yeah.
And whether it's Rory McIlroy or Tiger or Scotty Scheffler, and those guys have been playing golf since they were 4, 5, 6 years old. Maybe Tiger, obviously, from the time he could stand. You put in a hell of a lot of time and effort, blood, sweat, tears, etc., to become great at first, soccer and hockey, and then when you pivoted to golf, and playing and teaching, because I believe you played professionally or
Yeah,
took
local
your shot.
stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So do you view it somewhat similar, coming from your background? That's why I want to start with your sporting background at a high level. That you have a better understanding of the work it takes, and when somebody says, "Well, they won surely because of talent," it's like, okay, I said, I've argued this online, unfortunately, on X with some people will say, "Well, tell me what talent is," because if you we can agree that it's a physical predisposition to be good at a certain sport. Like if you're 7 foot tall, your odds of playing basketball at a very high level are going to be astronomical versus if you're
Yeah,
5'4".
genetics. So certain
Genetics.
components, like because I'm never going to play in the NBA. I'm never going to go and play in the NFL. But I was an unbelievably good athlete. Like in high
Mhm.
school, the football coach wanted me to play because I was fast. I had great hand-eye coordination. I'm like, nope, you're interfering with soccer. Not interested. I played travel baseball when I was young. I played basketball, right? But again, like it's kind of what we talked about earlier. Like back then, we had nothing up until 13, so you played everything. There was
Yes.
no early specialization. So you learn other sports and other sports skills, right? That help you become a very well-rounded athlete, which becomes an asset later when you start to want to focus and specialize. Golf is a late specialization sport, not an early one. Gymnastics early, figure skating early, right? So you got to understand the sport in which you're trying to play and understanding what the end goal is, right? The end goal in golf, for the most part, is more when you start to kind of get into that 15 age, right? Because that's when golf really starts to matter. You have to have certain pieces established, right? by the time you kind of get to there so that you can start to play higher level junior golf, so that you can start to get rankings, especially if you want to go play, college golf or potentially gain some sort of scholarship into the mix. There are certain numbers that you need. I had one kid, really good golfer. Like he is, I can't say too much because then I'll expose it who it is because it's pretty simple to see once I say it. He lost the opportunity to go to a D1 college program because he didn't have 175 miles an hour ball speed. Probably one of the best kids in the state of Texas.
Mm.
Flat out can freaking play. I didn't have a certain number. I think that's kind of
Yes.
crazy. But
Yeah,
again,
there we go.
I kind of understand the coach. Like, well, we're playing longer golf courses, right? He's going to be at a disadvantage. But you understand, like, he's already playing against all those other kids at the same thing, and he plays
He's
really
top
well.
ranked junior in the state.
You adapt to what you have, right? And then maybe you go and try to get him a little bigger, faster, stronger. But if you're just going to look at that piece, like I think he would have been a great asset to the program, and then where he's going, he will be a great asset to the program, right? Um, but again, like it could affect him, and I would say it probably would affect him if he's going to try to continue to advance and play professional golf. Because, like, man, you're at a real disadvantage when you start playing at that level, right? Because you're just not far enough. But you're giving up a lot of distance, a lot of ball speed, a lot of distance to players who can actually flat out hit it just as well as you can, right?
Yeah, but if he's only 16, 17 years old and he hasn't even gotten to his fill out age yet,
That's
and
my thoughts. Yeah, I know
yes,
exactly where you're going with it.
and if he's got the fundamentals of how to compete, which is
Yeah,
the most important. And
oh,
how
yeah,
many
yeah,
times? I mean, I played basketball a lot growing up, and I got burned out. I did not want to play in college anymore. 2 3 hour practices 6 days a week. I had enough in high school. But I obviously follow basketball quite a bit, and you look at the Scottie Pittman's where he grew, I think 6 inches his
mhm,
sophomore year of college, and now
yeah,
now
yeah,
he's got the skill of a guard, but now he's got the size of a
yeah, yeah,
that nobody can compete with him. Or
yeah.
he just so the kid I don't understand. I think to your point on one of your recent posts where you said it's not so much about the stats, it's more about skill or something to that effect. I might have a little wrong, but I highly recommend people go to your Instagram and social media and follow you. You'll see what some good stuff Dennis posts. But a kid like that they're completely negating the individual and
Mhm,
they're going only to the metrics, which I
mhm.
think is a shining example of what you were trying to say, or to a large part in that post. And I couldn't agree with you more. It's like, you look at any business, and we've had some Fortune 50 CEOs on this show. It's like, you hire the person, you can teach, you can train them to the skill to do the job that you need to, marketing, engineering, whatever. They have to have some background in, but you can train them. But hire the individual. Are they? Do they show up on time? Are they good people to have around? Are they anchors to the business or their department or their group? What kind of person are they? Are going to contribute? All these things factor. And if that kid's got all the pieces in place to where he's become the top junior or one of the top in the state of Texas, which is one hell of a golfing state, the fact that he's 16, 17 years old, doesn't have 175 ball speed, that's going to come. Or he's going to get close to it, I would have to assume, as he fills out. But he's got the intangibles already. It's like he's got the hard part. Why are you only wanting to get kids that have the easy part and then sit there and scratch your head? Well, why didn't we get through regionals? I don't know. Maybe because you got guys hitting at 320, but they don't know where it's going.
Yeah. And again, like, everybody has a choice. It's kind of what we talked about earlier, right?
Yeah.
Coach had a choice. You can take him, you can't. You have what he has right now, right? You got to make that decision, and he's got time to still to develop, right? But again, like, we all have choices in the matter, right? Coaches, players, right? Where do you put your kid? College and stuff like that. And again, like, if somebody has that kind of mentality, then you're not going to change it. And then, is that really where you'd want one of your players to go, anyways? And I would say no. You want to see the potential that's going to come out of the kid, and what do you have right now, and then how can you further nurture it? So as far as I'm concerned, right, that's where you kind of get into, you're assessing everything, right? Even when you're talking to my players about schools and things like that, all I do is ask questions to them, like, did you ask about this, did you ask about that, right? They have to make that decision. It's not my decision, right? Or where somebody would go. I would say that's kind of a lie, because this year I did it to somebody. I'm like, you're not going there. I'm not letting you. They're like, what? I'm not letting you. You're not even going to go there for a visit. And they're like, what? I'm like, no, I won't let you. I go, because I've had a player with that coach. I'm not doing it again. You're not going. And they're like, really? I go, never lied. Never lied to you. Or, you know, took you down the wrong road. I go, I cannot in good conscience allow you to go there.
Yeah, it's not a
And
good
and
match
maybe it
if
might
you know that
change,
student
but
like you
there's
do.
just I cannot allow that to happen. I go, the answer is no. Find some other place. And then, we ended up finding another place. She, AJGA High, she had plenty of schools inquiring and asking questions. I'm like, another one's going to come along. Don't worry about it. Right. And, of course, she found a place that she really likes.
Good.
Um, but there's just, certain things that you learn from being in the industry, and then, fortunate to have, you know, the ability to kind of work with players in the past that were really good. You hear stories about that stuff. You have an opportunity to kind of rub shoulders with certain coaches and ask questions, right? So you get to learn things about coaches and what they're looking for. Those are all experiences that help me guide my players, because not every one of my players wants to have a full D1 college scholarship or play D1. Some people just want to make JV. Other people just want to play varsity. Some people just want to go play D3. Some people want to go, they have their own thing, but the plan has to be specific to getting them to where they would want to go. And in that selection for the coach, just in my opinion, um, you need to find a coach who's been down that road, and who's helped people get to those stages, and then that's going to help you build out a plan, right? Very fortunate. I've kind of had two girls inside the top 20 in AJGA. One played in the junior Solheim Cup team in Germany. I've
Mm.
had three inside the top 75, five inside the top 125. I've had like six state champions here in Texas, five that I've helped as a consultant to somebody in Michigan, where they won five there. I helped him build like a $1.5 million indoor facility,
Wow.
right? I've got state amateur champions, uh, U.S. four ball champion. I've kind of been around it enough, right? I've seen it. I've seen what they've done, how much work they've had to put in it, how much work I had to put in to get to the levels that I got to, and then having a really late start in golf, and then what I needed to do to catch up, right? I don't think without those experiences, I don't think I'd be who I was today, because I wouldn't know enough, right, to understand what to prioritize, right, and what to chase first. Um, so I think life experiences do help, right? And I'm not saying that those life experiences, because you were a great player, is going to make you a great coach or anything along that nature. Um, but I think the life experiences and rubbing shoulders with certain people and having conversations with them certainly does help, right?
Yes, without a doubt.
Um,
I mean, you look at Butch Harmon, the X's and O's, and some people in today's world with the technology might disagree with Butch's X's and O's, meaning the mechanics of the swing and how he teaches it or what he's going to prescribe to somebody. But I think Butch's superpower is his ability to 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 work with the individual to get them to play their best, uh, given how maybe they're playing at that point in time. And I didn't notice this until really when he was working with Phil Mickelson, and whether Phil was doing what he wanted to or not. I think at the Players of the Year that Phil won, the Players where he hit that shot on 16 through the trees. But at that Players would say, Phil's been working really hard. I've never seen Phil hit the ball any better. If your coach is getting on national television and saying this thing at that level, all it can take is that one little 0.5% of confidence to say, well, to remove that doubt in your mind. And as you know, as you play at a very high level, the biggest thing that you can do to throw off a tour pro is give them 1 ounce of doubt. I think that, the first cut at Augusta, they're not sure how the ball's going to react. Is it going to hit and release a little bit? And those greens, you need such finite control. But I think that's Butch's superpower, is working with the person. Obviously, he's great. You can argue his technique all you want to, but he's obviously very good at that. But growing up around his dad, who was a master champion and phenomenal coach, Ben Hogan, Dave Marr, he was around that. So to Butch, it's like, okay, this is what I've done my whole life. But to your point, it is how do you develop the skill? How do you develop the person not just so much, well, do this in your swing or get more ulnar or get more flexed or the XYZ. I think in golf in general, I think that you and I are on the exact same page in that so much of the industry misses that key component. And then they sit there and wonder, well, this kid's working his ass off. He's hitting balls 3 hours a day. Why can't he break 75?
Oh,
Everything looks great.
there's more than just to golf than just to swing, right?
Yes.
It's decision making. It's the mindset. It's understanding the lie. It's adaptation, right? We're humans,
It's problem
right?
solving. And
My hands, my feels, my body is changing, on a daily basis, slightly. So I have to figure out what I'm doing on the range, and then I have to go apply it to the golf course. And then from there, that the wind on this hole coming from the right, it's a bit above my feet, you know. And now on the next hole, it might be coming from behind, the ball's a little bit below my feet. I have to adjust these pieces and understand those pieces. And then a lot of it is also, where they are mentally at that point in time and frame. Is their head spinning with all sorts of information, right? Or can they simplify those concepts to then be able to just kind of get into the zone, right? Mental game is a huge piece, and I was fortunate to be where I was at different points in my career. Being able to spend some time with Dr. Rick Jensen, he kind of opened my eyes a little bit to that stuff. So I went through one of his training programs early on. And then I also spent some time learning golf psych, which was kind of eye opening because I always thought the psychology piece had to come from a real sports psychologist. But the way Dr. Deborah Graham has that thing laid out, it's pretty simplistic to be able to start to help players at a very basic level. And that there have been players that I've had take that assessment. And then I've looked at their report and been like, you're above my pay grade, bud. So you got to go see them. Right. And then other people, it's very simplistic because of the report or what you're supposed to do because they do a great job laying it out for you. They do a great job in training you how to be able to execute it, but they also do a great job in teaching you to say, when you see certain components and traits, you can't help them. And I'm not, smart enough in that sense. And I'm at the same time smart enough to understand, like, I ain't touching that now. You got to go see them, right? So that they can go because they're the ones, she clinical sports psychiatrist, not me, right? But I can help people.
With those, when you took those classes and you have, I almost want to call you Dr. Dennis with all the certifications you have, Gears, TrackMan, Sam Putt Lab, I think I want to say it right, the MEGSA training aid. Is that right? And a whole host of others. But for some of the younger pros out there, and the golf industry is not, you don't make a lot of money at all, but you make a lot less money when you're coming up through the ranks. For someone who's an assistant, either they're in the pro shop and they want to become a coach or teacher, or they're an entry level instructor at a school or facility and they don't have much money, what is your advice to them on taking classes like Rick Jensen's and Dr. Graham's or whoever they're following, and they want to go learn more because it's only going to improve their skill as a coach or teacher. But they're sitting there looking at their bills and they're sitting there looking at the cost of some of these things, which are getting quite steep for the really good people. How did you balance that? That someone can learn from and say, well, geez, Dennis did this, and I'm going to follow Dennis' path. I'm going to take this class, and I'm going to improve, and it's going to bring. Eventually, it's going to give me more skill, and I'm going to teach more people and make more money. But when you're at that early level, it's hard to make that jump. You're very scared. You're not sure what to do, and you know that if you make a mistake in your decision, you're not going to have any extra income for maybe a month or two.
Yeah, I would say that everybody would have to go and take a long, hard look in the mirror to figure out what they want, right? Um, you look at like I value my friendship with Preston Combs. Right? All he does is putting. You look at like a James Ridyard. He teaches some full swing, but he's very well known for the short game stuff.
Uh-huh.
I would say that I think there's coaching. I would say that you could be, a swing guru, right, and understand all of that. For me, I wanted to be it all as much as I could be, right? I wanted to offer a training program that could be completely in-house and have all the vital pieces to improve performance. So I needed to teach the mindset. I needed to understand that enough. I needed the swing. I needed the short game. I needed the putting. I needed the mind. Um, I needed some speed stuff, right, to get people to be faster. So for me, early on, I was very fortunate, and then I would credit Lauren Anderson from the Proponent Group.
Yep.
Okay,
Have had Lauren on. Great
all
guy.
right, he helped me a tremendous amount back when I started at the private golf course, and I was doing that more so to play because some of the guys like, hey, go join at a private golf course, get to pay to play, and you get to play a private golf course. Like, ooh, okay, I'll do that. And then playing with people, and then starting to do some of that other stuff, and then as I started to transition um, into that, and I almost left the business. I'm like, there's way too many hours in the shop. Like, forget about this stuff. Like, I'm going to go back because I was a biomedical engineer. I'm going to go back to that stuff instead. But I couldn't get back into the company that I was working for before I got into golf. So I had to wait. It was like, we're not hiring right now, Dennis, but we want you to come back because we left on really good terms.
Hmm.
I was like, okay. So then I kind of stayed in the business a little bit more. Then I started to teach a little bit. Like, oh, this is kind of fun, right? Helping others, right? Because I always thought I would be where I am now, but in soccer, not golf. So I've always kind of wanted that aspect and to help others like those guys, my dad and his players helped me. So I always wanted to give that back, just in the wrong sport. But I was in the PGA. Then I stopped doing it because I'm like, I'm getting out. I'm like, forget it. And then I was lucky enough to get into, back then it was AMF. And then I was in a proponent group. I was talking to Lauren and he asked me some questions. I knew what I wanted. Like I really wanted a range. I wanted maybe a couple holes. I mean, that's what I wanted. And I wanted to have access to a golf course. So I have a building now, so 3,000 square feet, which I like because in Texas, the heat and then the wind in the spring and fall, like it's
Right.
not really
He's
great to
brutal.
go hit golf balls all day outside because of crosswinds. So it's like, okay, got it. If I'm going to be here in Texas, it's got to be indoors. So been teaching golf for 20 years indoors because of the Northeast. So I'm like, I know what I need to do indoors, what I would want, what I need to help people build baseline. So that's how I built my place. But Lauren was like, okay, then this is like, if you're going to kind of do the PGA thing, like this would be the perks, right? And like one of the perks is like you get to work at a private golf course because if you're not a PGA, it's very hard to go and work at a private
Hmm.
golf course or a golf course in general. He's like, do you want that? I'm like, no, like I just want my own place. He goes, okay, well then you don't really need to do that, right? So and then we had talked about a few other things, and then it became okay. So then this is what you need to do if this is what you want to do. And so he helped me establish the plan early on about taking the money that I had because I was going to pay for the PGA. He goes, you take that and then you apply it for teaching specific classes. So then I did the KVS, I did the TPI stuff early on, I did the golfing machine. Right. And then that's when I ended up meeting his wife at one of the golfing machine classes in Orlando, which then that was really nice because that's what got me going into the Megza because I got to spend a lot of time at Bender's place, Mike
Hmm.
Bender's place, early on in my career. And, they took me in. Like I would go there and spend 3, 4 weeks at a time and then come back home, sitting there and just kind of just watching because in the winters, like, you're not teaching back home. So I was like, I'm go down to Florida. So I'd reach out, hey, can I come out for a while? I'm like, yeah, sure. Fine. So I'm down there for like 3, 4 weeks. And then, been with my wife since we were like 19. We didn't get married till 30, but letting her, she's like, okay, yeah, go ahead. You have to go.
Go get out.
Yeah. So, I'd leave for a month at a time and stuff.
It's a
Um,
vacation for her too.
yeah. So it was like, it was, yeah, I should probably say that. Um, but it was nice in that I got insights into high level teaching, high level players, their junior academy. I'm like, this is what I want to do. Then I got into their Megzer because that's who kind of designed it. And I've told them in the past, I'm like, you guys are like horrible sales people or absolutely geniuses. They're like, huh? I go, because you guys always used to tell me like, oh, you need to buy one, you need to buy one. And just like, yeah, yeah, whatever. Like, okay. Sounds like way too much like a sales pitch to me. Geniuses in that some lessons, that the student wouldn't want me to be there. So they're like, hey, Dennis, go hang out with the academy kids. Okay. Off to the academy I went, right? And the kids sold me on it. The junior academy kids were sold me on it. It wasn't them. So like I had to go talk to them like, I got to like I knew all the kids on a first name basis. They knew me. I knew them. Like when I first got there, they went, "Oh, how long are you going to be here this time for?" 3 weeks. Oh, cool. I'm like, yeah, pretty nice. So then, but like those first few weeks, like there afterwards, like, why do you like the Megza? Oh, I was so trying to fix my swing. I could never fix it. I come here, so now he was like, I hit balls on the Megzer and then I go in the front and try to do it. Then I come back into the Megzer and I go back and forth. And, it's been too much and I've changed it now. And it was just like everybody I went to, it was the same story. I was someplace else. I couldn't do it. I came here, they tell me what to do. They show me how to set it up. I come out here. I hit balls on this thing. I go to the front of the mat. There's nothing there. I hit balls there. I come back. So I go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And the story was the same.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, oh shit. That's what I said. Like it was genius on their part, right? Because they got me in front of the kids. So I have 3 Megzas. I only have 1 Megza now. The other 2 are in my garage. I just don't have the space for all 3. Um, but I think those things are absolutely positively fantastic, right? Because you hit balls in those things. It provides instant feedback if you hit the thing, so you can use it as positive and negative feedback. And it's not exercise. Most kids, when they go to the range, they don't use video, they don't use practice stations, right? So to me, if you're not going to do any of that stuff and you're trying to change your swing and you're hitting balls, all you're doing is exercising, and you're further ingraining your bad habits. So, um, so with me here at the academy, kids come out and they practice with me, like soccer practice. I make them do the shit that they don't want to do or they won't do all the time.
Well, just like you learned from those soccer players on your dad's team, you can't get to step 3 if you don't have the foundation of step 1 and 2.
No, but everybody wants to get to step 3.
Yeah, everyone wants to
Especially
get
as
to
it
step
relates to
10.
golf, because then you use the analogy of the rock diving. Like, I ain't going up there yet. But yeah, in golf, they're okay because you're not going to get hurt. You're not going to get physically hurt. But I think psychologically you get hurt because you start to create more and more doubt. And then you come back in and we're going to do something. You look at video and you're still doing the same crap. Like, so it keeps taking a chip out of your self-esteem versus being able to see that you're progressing to where you're supposed to be. Right. So that was my thing when I was first got into teaching. Right. And then kind of, watching those guys at the club watch them teach. Remember, I would go over there, and then like 2 swings later, they're like doing the same crap again. And I'm like, hey, you're doing the same crap. Well, it's on him. He's got to do that. And I'm just like, holy Christ, like, I would have never gotten good at sports like that.
No, the one thing that drives me crazy about the golf industry is if you're coaching somebody and you give them a solution to their problem, we'll call it, or an antidote to what's ailing their golf game, swing, chip, and whatever. And if it's not working to some extent at the time your lesson's over, to some extent, I mean, depending how ingrained their bad patterning is, anywhere from, let's say, 10 to 30,
You'll be able to change
40%.
the pitcher pretty quick.
Yes. But some of these coaches that I see over the years that people have been coming to them for months or years or et cetera. And they're like, you just need to keep working at it. It's like, at what point does the individual say, I've been working at it, I've been busting my hump, dedicating as much time as I can, whether it's an hour a week, 5 hours a week, 20 hours a week, and they're not getting any better. Maybe the coach has to look in the mirror and say, the antidote I gave them or the fix I gave them is not, there's something else there, and telling them to work harder is not the solution.
I don't agree and disagree to some extent. I would say it would revolve around what are they doing in practice and how they're structuring their practice. So, as an example, if I give somebody, so you're in the Megza, I've given you a practice station. Right? If I've gotten to the root cause and I've given you a practice station, if you use the practice station, I know for a fact that you'll get better because it's instant feedback between right and wrong. If you're the golfer who takes the feedback and you do it here and then you go to the range and you don't use the feedback station and you're not videoing yourself and you're not calibrating yourself,
They're
then
unraveling
it is
everything.
not on the coach, it's on the player.
Yes.
So that's why I say I don't disagree. But now if the player is using their practice station diligently, right? They are videoing it and it's not changing, then the root cause is wrong.
Yeah.
Then you have to adjust the root cause. But a lot of times, like I said, like the problem with golf is feeling real. I've never met a student that I've given a lesson to that went out there and purposely practiced the wrong way. Every single person believes they're doing it the right way. And that's the problem, right? Because again, like if you think you're doing it right, why would you ever change? Like, but if I go and I open up the video camera and I feel like I did it right, and then my picture is so different, then I know I haven't changed anything. So then I got to sit there and spend some time in calibration to fix those pieces and not worry about the ball flight. So when I'm with my players, like swing training is video based, not TrackMan or GC quad based. Change the pitcher. Pitcher's everything. There are times in here where I'll shut the projector. Even for the longest time, I had no projectors. Even when I bought my projectors from a good friend of mine, I had them at home for a year before I put them up. I called him, I'm like, hey, if I got like what you told me to do, can you tell me what to do again about setting them up? He goes, what? I go, yeah. He goes, you haven't set them up yet? I go, nope. What the hell have you been doing with them? Oh, they're sitting in my closet. And he's like, you're serious? I go, yeah, look, I sent him a picture. I go, where do you want to put them? Can you tell me again? And he's like, you're serious? I'm like, dude, he's like, why did you buy them? I go, because we talked. I thought at some point I would. And like, you said they were really good projectors. I bought them. And he just like, you're crazy. I'm like, sometimes. I go, but there's a point to everything that I do, because then as soon as you use projectors for some people and they see the data, it's always about the data. They lose sight of the ball
Yes,
or,
they
or
hit a
the
ball and they're
video.
like, yeah, they hit a ball and like, what the numbers say?
Yeah.
What?
So
eh,
most of the people for me, like the times where I'll shut off the projector, I turn the TV, I swivel it to me so I can see what the ball is doing, and all I let them see is the JC video cameras in the TV. And then the first few swings, like, what did the ball do? I'm like, I don't care. I'm not telling you. Did you do what you're supposed to do? What do you mean? Well, I don't know where the ball went. I go, we just talked about what you needed to do in the picture. Yeah. Let me say back for you. Did you do what you're supposed to do? He's like, well, no, I didn't. He goes, but I thought I did. Okay, but you didn't. He goes, no. I go, so then who cares about the ball? Yeah, well, the ball doesn't do anything. The ball is just there messing with your head.
mm,
Can you not change? And then I do stuff with people. Like some of the kids get so mad at me because I can swing any way I want in terms of how I load the club and move. And I've played sim golf with them. Like every hole, I'll switch how I'm going to swing it. And then I still beat them, and it drives them nuts. And I'm just like, but see, it's a mindset piece. I'm internalizing what I need to do, and then I'm putting it all together. I'm layering feels, and I still hit the same shot, right? Or I hit functional shots because I know what the pattern is going to give me. So then I just play the pattern. I understand it, right? But I'm not worrying about the outcome, because if I can't control me, I can't control the outcome. So if I want my swing on autopilot and hit my stock push through, I don't have to think a whole lot. Just go and swing it. I've built it into me. But if I want to change that pattern a little bit, I have to have some internal cues to the equation. So for me, I have to internalize some things, and then I'm going to internalize those things. Then I'll adjust the swing ever so slightly, and then I get a different ball flight. Um, but that's why, like, I didn't use projectors, and even sometimes in the lessons, like, I won't use the ball data, and then sometimes I put it up just to mess with people. Like, so what'd you feel? Look at the ball. Look at it win. I didn't ask you about the ball. I ain't blind. I see it's right there. Remember, we said the next 10 shots are going to be about what? Oh, you got me. I'm like, yeah, it's a test. Because if you
mm.
do it here, you're going to do it out there when you're out there practicing by yourself. Or when you come here and you practice at my place by yourself. Right. So it's just a test to see where you are psychologically. Are you understanding where you're supposed to be focused to, or how you're going to grade yourself on? And if you can't change that, like, I'm never going to change anything about what you do.
Yeah, if they're not going in the direction that you want to, because they're getting sidetracked, their direction focuses shift towards what the ball's doing instead of the direction that you've set them on, then they're breaking that chain, and they're not never going to get any better.
No. So that's why I said, like, I kind of disagree with you to some extent, because it depends on the player, and how they're using the feedback. Are they focused on the priorities that, okay, hey, I'm not in performance practice. Performance practice would be hitting a ball towards target, and I'm going to vary it. Then there's block practice for the ball. You have this so many shots at this flag, and I got to go and change. And then there's swing practice. And at the beginning of swing practice, it's not about the ball. It should be about the swing. And I might tell somebody, hey, put the stick out there. The ball always has to start to the right. I don't care which way it curves. There's the pitcher. We want the ball to start to the right. When you start having the pitcher the right way, if the ball's going to the right, then we're good.
Yes, now
Okay.
I
And then
do
I'll
agree
start
that.
adding more details to the mix. But the second they make that one swing, look at the ball. The ball, it's like, no, it's not supposed to. No, you just got an F.
Yes,
Let's
I
talk
do
about the
agree
swing.
that if the student is, when they go off on their own, they're practicing, and let's just say they worked with a coach for 9 or 12 months, and they're not following the protocol that the coach gave, but then that is more on the student, but also on the coach to I hate to use the word sell because you're not trying to sell them on the
Yeah,
idea. But you're trying to,
accountability.
yes, you're the accountability. The coach has to hold them to accountability. That's why they're coming to the coach, because that's what that coach is being paid to do.
And at the same time, that's where, like we kind of talked about earlier, about am I, in terms of the advice for younger coaches, do I want to be a swing guy and only a swing guy, or do I want to be a performance guy, which has to do everything? If you're going to be a performance guy like I am, then I have to do whatever I need. Some players, like myself, tell me what to do if I understand that I don't need help. Right? Not everybody is like me. Right? I think that a vast majority of coaches are trying to teach players like the elite level learners. Me what I need to do, show me how I need to practice it, and I'll do it on my own. Certain players don't thrive that way because they don't have the mindset to practice the right way. So in those situations, that's where programming in my academy helps. Like I have majority of my programming is all tailored to the individual. Does the player need more support to learn what they're doing because they're not a good practicer? Then they have to come here and practice with me. I've got to teach you how to practice and what you're looking for to keep you on the task, because your mindset of what you've already learned is prohibiting you from learning and advancing what you need to do. So then I need to give you more. I need to be more than
Yeah.
just the technical swing guy. I can teach you how to practice, right? So that's where, you know, young coaches listening to this, like, what do you want to be, right? I don't think that just being a swing guy is bad, right? But you got to have, if you want to be very successful, and if you're going to open up an academy or some sort of teaching facility, well, you better have other pieces in place to help teach those players whatever they need. So you would need to find somebody who's good at coaching. Coaching to me is teaching people how to take their ball flight and put the damn thing in the hole. Swing to me is the technical aspect. That's just me, instruction. So there's different levels of what you're trying to do. If you're just going to focus on one piece, like you need more around you, or you're gonna need to get lucky to have the right people around you. You need people like me going to you because all I need is just guidance, and I'll do the rest, right? Um, but like I said, I think a vast majority of people are learning the game incorrectly, right? They do not have the capacity of doing it on their own. They need more support, and kind of like what we talked about earlier, people coming into the space and tricking golfers into believing like you need the data is just snake oil salesman, right? You don't need data. You need
Do you know
education.
Brian? Do you know Brian Gathright? He's
No,
a
sir.
teacher coach in Texas. He ran the Penix schools for many years, and I don't know where I think he's in the San Antonio area. Well, was Nota Begay's coach when Nota was still playing on the tour. But to your point about technology, he told the story when he came on the show that when video was coming out in the 80s, or making this big push and becoming more popular, that he asked Harvey Penick one day after one of their schools or one of the lessons or wherever they were. He said, "Well, what do you think of this video?" And he said, "Well, it's going to be a hell of a lot better for us than it is the student, because we get to now see all these things that we can stop and all these other." Now, the student's going to have a lot of wow factor. They're going to want to see it because back in the 70s, we didn't have video. It really didn't come out until the 80s. But he said it's going to be a bigger thing for the coaches to ooh and ah over and look at stuff than it was then. So, yeah, utilizing technology, but the learning, the skill development, as you say, as opposed to just data, is very important. I think, and we're in a data era. The tech era is so much data driven. I think we're coming out of it to some extent. Last 15 years or so has been very strong data driven. But I think we're now understanding, okay, we have all these piles and mountains and mountains of information. How do we formulate this
Yeah,
data now to performance?
yeah,
I see it slowly. It's a very big ship, and it's hard to make a change in a navigation pattern. It takes a long time for something that big to move. But at least I see some of the undercurrents of that thing starting to move. People like yourself and
yeah.
others.
And again, mentors are big. I've got some really good mentors. Like if I have a question, like I know where to go if I have a question on the different aspects of things. So I've built a really good network around me
Uh-huh.
of people who I trust, who I would have no issues with, sending players to, asking for advice on players' swings or different aspect of their swings, which is always a really nice perk into the equation. But we got to understand that golf itself is more than just having a really good golf swing,
No
right?
doubt about it.
It's understanding the, because I talk about this a lot with my students, like, what's the purpose of golf? I ask people that all the time. What's the purpose of golf? What's the sole purpose of golf? Oh, what do you mean? What's the sole purpose of golf? It's pretty simple, right? To have a good swing. Define a good swing. Just my swing. Like, define a good swing. Look at Matthew Wolff. Look at Jim Furyk. Look at Tiger
Uh-huh.
Woods, right? Calvin Peete. You start rambling off these names. Are they
Miller
all good
Barber.
swings? Yeah, right. So it's like, so define a good swing. Like, people just don't know what they're really supposed to do. They have no idea, and it's too general, right? Whole purpose of golf is get the ball in the hole in the least amount of shots, right? And then from there, I'll ask him, okay, so to do that, there'd be some fundamentals we have to do. What are the fundamentals? Oh, you need a good grip, stance, posture, alignment. And I'm like, oh, you ever watch Lee Trevino play golf? Oh, yeah. Where does he aim? I aim's like way to the left. Arnold Palmer used to aim to the right. You get Jim Furyk, right? So you look at Paul Azinger's wrist. They're all different. I go, so how is that a fundamental if they're all doing all those things different? Well, you got to hold the club. Yeah, no kidding. you know, I do have to hold the club, but there's a lot of different ways to hold the club, right? So things would be the orientation of the anatomy from the wrist angles to the snuff box to the radial ulnar to the humerus bone, where the shaft is pointing, how the trail arm is set up, where the pelvis is set up, upper rotation is there. All those things matter, right? So to me, those things are all variables in the grand scheme of things. So how can you have a fundamental such as that is clearly very different amongst people on the PGA Tour and right now in the Hall of Fame? Right? So that to me is a problem. To me, you look at the people in the Hall of Fame, how do they get there? How do you get the ball in the hole in the least amount of shots? Well, I gotta hit the dang thing solid. I gotta know how far I'm going, and then generally speaking, the ball's curving. Then most amateurs want to hit the ball straight, and then tour players curve it. So
Yeah,
it's
you
like,
got to know. You have to know what you're doing. It has to be consistent that you can plan.
so
Whether you hit a fade, draw, whatever.
from there you can start to build. Okay, what do you want to do? You want to fade it or do you want to draw it? Well, I want to draw it. Well, how much draw do you want? What do you mean? I go, I got players who have a lot of draw. I got players who have different draws, but the way I configure their setup is designed to match the shot outcome. So what do you want? A little draw. I go, so you want a little draw? You can have very little face to path deviation. You better practice a lot. How much you going to practice? Well, I'm going to practice a couple days a week. Well, it's going to be really hard to match up that face to path, in my opinion. How about we have a little bit more bias to the curve? What do you mean? How about we move the ball a little bit more back, we get the path out a little bit more, hit the ball a little bit earlier in the arc, give us a little bigger curve with a little longer clubs, and I'll teach you how to adjust it for the smaller clubs to hit a little less curve because inherently, because of lying the face angles, it's going to want to curve a little less. Okay, let's do that. You sure? Okay, because if I build a house, because I just tell them, like, I've got to build a house, right? When you look at a house and you want to build a house, if we just bought a piece of land, we're not going to sit there and start, digging holes all over the place, right? We would need to know what the house needs to look like. The function of the house is all the same. The house all look different, but there ain't going to be no house builder that's going to build a house that's not to code. Right? There are certain things that have to be up to code. And it's the same thing in the golf swing when you're building something. Things have to be up to code because, again, you don't want to create anything in a golf swing that is going to put unduly stress on joints. Right? So you got to create longevity to the equation. So it's got to be a safe golf swing, keys to biomechanics. From there, like as we start building the house, we measure everything out. We put some lines on there because I watch them build my house, and the house is in my community, right? They're going in there, groups going in, they're marking, other guys building trenches, then they're laying different cuts in there, then they're laying the pipe work, then they're laying the cement, then they're doing the first layer of the 2x4s and all that other stuff. Then they start adding, but they already know what the house needs to be built like and what it's going to look like, right? If you decided, right, that I'm halfway through your house and also I want to add something else, it's going to cost you a lot more money. And I might have to take even longer to change because I got to go and change the whole schematics.
Yes.
Especially if you're talking about changing some of the size of the rooms. And I already have all the 2x4s laid out. Like, but yeah, we can do that. It's going to cost you X amount of time. It's going to delay the house another 5 months because I got to knock all that shit down.
Yeah, you got to redo the structure. Yes.
So I try to establish what we need to do at the beginning so that we're not changing things. It's like building a house, and that's how I explain it to them. We need to do this. This is what we built. It's going to take us a while to do this, right? Just like it would be building a house. We have to go in layers. And then
Hmm.
sometimes I'll talk to them and they'll be like, "Oh, what about this?" It's like, hold on a second. Since you understand the house analogy, you're asking me about the moldings, dude. I'm just getting the 2x4s up. Like that's kind of irrelevant right now, right?
Do you at any point in time, because I know you know your biomechanics very well. Do you at any like if somebody says, "Well, I want to hit a draw," I say, "Well, look, based off your biomechanics and your structure and the way I've seen you swing, your programming, etc. I don't think that playing a big sweeping draw is going to be the best option for you." Do you go that far into the biomechanics, or do you just say, "Hey, I think
I
that
would say
getting
it
this
wouldn't be
misdraw."
so much biomechanics. It would be just understanding the range of motion in the joints and kind of orientate the body at setup to get what I want. Some people might be crazy limited in
Uh-huh.
what they're trying to do, right? I'm not saying that you can't hit draws with, a really hard external shoulder, right? But it would be really hard to add some torque to twist it. So depending on somebody's anatomy and how they would position it, things are kind of preset to certain pieces, right? Um, and then, limitations in the body and stuff like that. But you can kind of cheat some of that stuff, right? Because I can pull the trail side back so you can get a little bit more in the equation and things like that. I wouldn't say it's so much biomechanics, but I'd just say is like, can their anatomy do that, right? Do they have crazy amounts of limitations? So I'll check that when I'm kind of doing the blueprint for the player. And then once that's been established and checked off, we're good. We can build this thing. Then there's no issues with me building it. But I think a lot of people have the capacity and the capabilities in their body to either hit draws or fades without a problem. I think people are, for the most part, flexible enough to be able to put them into positions that I would need them to be in. They just don't know how to move. And then they lock a lot of segments out, which then creates a lot of stress on the body. And then I don't think a lot of instructors understand anatomy and how everything kind of works together. So when I'm looking at like gears, I love gears, two things. I look at the system as a whole, right? I look at because it's calculated, right? And I know that I had a conversation with which he kind of delayed my purchase of what I'm going to purchase, right? He said the vertical stuff was like about 10% off, or about 5 to 10% off. I'd have to look at my notes, but everything else is pretty spot on. Like gears calculates in ground reaction forces. It doesn't do other pieces that I'm more interested in to play with.
Hmm.
But I look at the interaction between the player, the ground, timing pieces, how the body works, how the shaft works with the player, EI curves to how it unloads and loads and how it moves. I look at the collision between the club and the ball and then ball flight. And then I got to figure out, where their priorities lay. That's what I love about gears. It's also not so much for me a lot of times. It's like you get some mid-height handicappers like, I don't need gears. Like you can see that stuff a mile away, right? But I do want to see how they interact or the shaft interacts with their body. And Trackman, which I love, GC Quad, which I love, right? It's just a moment in time. I want to see things that are leading up to that. I think a lot of people are going to react to what they feel in the shaft, right? Because we
Without a
can't feel
doubt.
the club face. So, like, if I don't have the club matching the player's inputs and that thing is really wacky, like, that's got to go, right? For beginner golfers and stuff like that, if I really think that I need to show them stuff on gears to get more buy-in, then I'll put them in the suit outside of that. But they're all kind of getting the club stuff because I need to make sure that it matches them.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. We
At
specialized
some
in that for years.
Yeah, I'll circle back around. I'll tell myself we'll circle back around as the body gets a little nicer, like to look at some other deeper stuff. But right now, like it's pretty simple. But we need to make sure that the club works. Okay. And then looking at the dynamic lying and stuff like that. Because like even my clubs, um, you have your standards from every manufacturer of what the static lie angles. All mine are all different. Because I'm measuring it at impact and then where is it and then where do I want it to be? And I tweak it all, right? To make sure that at impact, my dynamic lie angle is flat with every single one of my clubs because the droop is different with shorter to longer clubs. So I adjust all of that stuff, right? So I do that with all my players, right? Making sure that everything is where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I get a kick out of people that come in and say, "Well, I'm all 1 degree up," or "I'm all too flat." I say, "No, that's not
Okay.
how it works."
Yeah, yeah, okay.
I have found that player dependent. That used to be that, let's say, the wedge 9 and right around the 8 would be very, very similar, like within half or quarter degree of angle. And people say you can't do a quarter degree. I say you start bending clubs every day for 4 and 5 years, you can hit quarter and half degrees. And the guy I worked for used to send his machines to Mitchell every year to get them recalibrated. So we were
Yeah, yeah.
dialing it in very well. And then then you'd have your next grouping. Your 7, 6, 5 would be very close to the same range, and then your back then your 4, 3, and 2 would be in a similar, but they would not be across the board on a linear
Yeah, yeah.
progression, because as you said that they told you, I think it was 1.2 to 1.6 degree toe droop is what most clubs would do. Now you got to take into account a lot of different things: heel to toe, hosel
Yeah.
depth, hosel length, all those things. So
Mhm.
there was a range. But yes, I'm right with you that not not going all one up from the company standard, or else
No,
you're going to
like
be
you gotta
struggling.
you gotta be able to go in there, like I said, and you gotta look at everything. Everything has to be accounted for. Every joint in the swing has to be accounted for. How is the ankle and knee contributing to the upper segments, right? How is the trail elbow orientation instead of contributing to everything else in the golf swing? And then how does it all work? How does it all work together, right?
Integrated
Um,
system. Yeah.
it's really good. Like Dr. Bush, in his anatomy class from the stack and tilt stuff was like wonders for me. Being able to spend time with Dr. Tyson and asking him, he's on the senior tour, right? Michael Manavian, Andy Plummer, and David Tarashi, and then
Rob Cheney, I think, is
Rob
a
Cheney.
stack and tilt.
I talked to him a little bit, but like not as much as maybe I should. Right? I know we spent some time this year at the PGA show. He was going to come out to do some sort of golf school with me, but time constraints and stuff like that. Hopefully, I'll have him here because I really enjoyed. I've talked to him at some of the seminars. We've chatted a little bit online, but I've never really had a really in-depth conversation with him. So this year he stayed with Michael and I at the PGA show. So that was a really fun night. Some of the stuff that we posted online, some of
Yeah, I
the
saw
live
some of your
stuff that
live
we
stuff.
did. Yeah,
Let
so
me
that
ask you a
stuff was
question. I
yeah.
got to ask you a question. As I watch this, the stack and tilt community, I'm not going to single anybody out, but because you trained a little bit in their system, you know the guys, and not, again, not saying that this is them. The stack and tilt system, a lot of the disciples, I'll use that word, the people that are heavy in the stack and tilt, they are absolutely fanatical and will die on that mountain to a large extent. And I'm not saying this to be derogatory, but I'm saying as an observation from somebody who's, I would consider myself more as, okay, stack and tilt works for some people, it's not going to work for others.
Okay, so
Um,
can I'm going to
go
write that
go.
down. Hold on. Hey, keep going. Sorry.
Okay, the question is, why? Number one is, why do some of the stack and tilt people, why do they seem so adamant that, and the need to defend the theory so adamantly? And I guess the second part. Well, I don't want to ask two questions. I just want to ask that question, just to get your opinion, because you
I
know them.
think
You're not a stack and tilt person, but you know their system.
think they have. I've known a lot of people in the network before I was in the network. But when Mike and Andy came out and started talking about the movements in the golf swing, it was very contrary to what was being taught in mainstream. And then they got attacked. Okay, and then they defended themselves very well. Right. So a lot of those guys who kind of what you're saying, I don't put their flag on the hill or whatever it is, right? People are seeing them attack others, but they're forgetting that stack and tilt was very, very heavily attacked early on, right? And if you've been around golf long enough, I
Yeah, I
think you would
remember
agree
that.
with like almost everybody
Yep.
would be like, oh, people ain't doing that. But like some of the descriptions and some of the pictures that they would use, people weren't understanding. Like when you go to change, if somebody's upper rotational center is moving 6 inches to the right, you got to feel like the upper is going to go left. So they're making people pose and posting pictures. That was very contrary to really what they wanted them to do. It was like, okay, this is you. This is what you need to feel. You got to get to here. And then people were just like, oh my God, you can't do that. And just like, well, I'm just having the player feel that. I'm not trying to really make them swing like that. Now, I would say that because there's like, there are people in stack and tilt who, this might sound bad, but I don't think it is, right? There are people in Slack and Tilt who haven't done what I've done with it, and there are people who are in Slack and Tilt who have gone a little bit further than what I've done, like a Cheney and a Manavian and stuff like
Yeah.
that, right?
Hmm.
I'm not saying I'm at their level within the network, but I think many of you would agree that I'm very close to that, right? Stack and tilt is basically the golfing machine moride on steroids, right? Um, the guys who are defending it are the guys who've been in it in the trenches for a long time and are also the ones who got bashed early on. Okay. So I understand where they're coming from. I understand that they are adamant about their system and then relaying information that is what the best players do, not versus what people say and demonstrate, right? I know a lot of what stack and tilt is. I know how much they're using gears and stuff, right? Because Mike and Andy, if you look at the stack and tilt DVD, they hired John Sinclair to do the 3D and they used force plates. They were one of the first ones that I saw that ever had, 3D brought into the equation into their system that clearly defined what they were trying to do, clearly defined words where I think in our industry, everything is so dang ambiguous, it just creates more confusion than it is anything else, right? I know when I call Cheney, when I talk to Andy, when I talk to anybody in the network that I talk to, when I talk to them, we're not like, what are you talking about, Dennis? Like, we have very specific words that we use. We have coding systems so that our communication is very specific. Nobody can incorporate or interpret anything being different. And that's what I like about it, right? Um, but just like in every system, like you look at like TPI, you look at Ledbetter, you look at Jim McLean, you look at the Hank Haney. You mentioned somebody earlier, whatever, I can't think of his name, doesn't matter, but another system that or concept that people teach, right? I don't really think people teach systems like some of the guys in Stack and Tilt do. But kind of what I said is like some people will maybe read just a book, watch a video from somebody that's posted something on YouTube, or maybe it's gone to one class, right? And haven't really understood the intricacies because I've been there. Before I got into the network, I talked to Manavian a bit, but I was already kind of talking to him a little bit. He put me in contact with Andy. I think I talked to Andy for a couple of weeks before I decided to join. Like I just had questions. And then he was very kind with his time, answering my questions, answer my questions, answer my questions, answer my questions. And it's just like, oh, it's kind of not what everybody makes it out to be based on my experience with it. So then I went to a class and like listened to how Andy kind of laid out the whole training seminar. And it wasn't like this is how you teach. This is just how the body moves, right? He just laid it out for you. And then, oh man, I think I've been in there now for 7 years ish, give or take a little bit. Every time I go to a seminar, there's always something new, something different because, Manavian's got gears and they've got gears pictures and they're talking about the biomechanics and how the body moves and stuff like that. Like every really good stack and tilt instructor that I know knows that the pelvis moves a little bit from P1 to P2, right? We just think it's so small in the grand scheme of things, right? That you see a lot of those arguments on shows. Oh, the pelvis moves. Like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Like, I got million fucking data points. Like, but the problem is, like, when I speak to Dr. Tyson, mid to high handicap golfers, when they sway off the ball, their body cannot get them back forward. So why would I have them swaying off the ball? And again, it goes back to the pitcher pieces. I'm going to have them feel like they've got to move more forward. And if they move an inch, I don't care. There'd be some reference pieces of where you can be and where you can't be. But again, like the ground reaction force people, it's okay. Yeah, we know the pressure moves to the right. None of us guys on track until they said it didn't. Like goes back, 2010 before it was even popular. I already was doing pressure traces
Yeah, I
with my
think
with my 3D motion. So we know. So the question then is like, are you factoring in the club COM to the trace? So when you see people move to the right and you see the trace go to the right, if you're not using like a gears that's going to look at the anatomy, how do you know what's really contributing to the pressure trace to the right? Because I can still stay centered and have the COM kind of feel like it's going to move the trace to the right. So what moves? That's our thing, right? There's a lot of
yes,
different ways to move, but it's looking at everything as a whole where the kinematics of it to me is more important. I want to know how each segment is moving, not the sum of all forces.
I think when Scott Lynn was on, that we were discussing the different pressure traces and how things get to the trail leg, and he said, look, stack and tilt, it's a very good system. You don't argue it. It works very well for some people, but that they would have it. I think he described it as roughly a 75% pressure trace to the trail leg, where other models or other systems or whatever somebody's teaching might have upwards of 90. Um, I think it has sometimes to do with if you get into. I know you know about upper versus lower axiom or axial pivot points, anchor points. So how does the body and the pelvis pivot around the lower half, and how does the chest and the rib cage, everything above that, pivot above its own anchor point, and that they can differ for some people, not for others. So I my whole thing is I think again, stack and tilt is a viable option for a fair number of people out there. I think maybe a center pivot is a viable option for some, and I think a rear pivot like a Gary Woodland would be viable for some others. But
So like when you go back to Dr. Lin, 90%. So the problem that I have with some of these, I guess you could say the ground reaction force guys who want to see 90. So what if I shift my upper center rotation, lower center rotation 6 inches to the right, and I haven't reshifted it? So I hit the 90%, but my rotational centers are so whacked out.
uh-huh.
By the time I get to P5, I'm going to have some blowback. I ain't moving any more forward. So now what? So my upper rotation center, the center of the swing is so far back. Like, that's the problem. So, like, kind of goes back. I think stack and tilt would work for everybody if you understood what stack and tilt really is, right? And like, I talk to Monavian a lot, and I tell people all the time, like, I like the fact that people don't believe and understand what stack and tilt truly is because it's a huge advantage to those who do know. Stack and tilt is basically a system to teach golf around the three-dimensional aspect of the golf swing. That's all it is. That's all it is in a nutshell. Andy keeps hammering that in classes. That's what people don't understand. People ask me all the time, like, oh, it's only left leaning. I'm like, nope, not even close. Because if you look
Well,
at my players, some players may look more stack and tilt, others don't. But I teach everything around stack and tilt and
well,
everything that else I've learned through TPI and all that other stuff.
here's where I'm going with this is when I look at when I look at Joe Mayo's stuff and I look at Parker stuff, one is teaching shallower, the other one's teaching more steep. And my question to both would be: you've obviously had success with your students, or they wouldn't be coming to you. Have you determined what it is that would have somebody be more predominantly steep versus more predominantly shallow? Because there seems to be they're both successful into their self. When I look at the discussion as golf instruction and coaches will have these debates. Sometimes they get a little more heavy than others. The one right now that's going back and forth is one between the AMG guys and the stack and tilt guys, where they're talking about the lead shoulder cut. Does it move more lateral? Does it come down? You can cherry pick both sides. I think can cherry pick people to demonstrate what theory they're trying to get across. I think Sean Webb would be more of a trail loading type person. So his shoulder's going to move more lateral. I think if you took a stack and tilt guy that let's just say Scheffler is for sake of argument. Scheffler is a more centered golfer or left leaning golfer. His is going to look like it doesn't have as much lateral, that it goes more down. But you have the gears and I don't. I have a friend that has it, so I've worked with him a couple of times. But I would say that in both instances that the rotation or the pivot point for both of them is still around the chest. So whether it goes down and across, or whether it goes more across or more down, is more golfer dependent than it is just trying to teach somebody to fit into a certain model as opposed to a different model.
Like with stack and tilt, the really good guys are going to adjust whatever they need to move the fundamental that the player is the most off with. So contact distance curve, right?
Mm-hmm.
The good guys that I know apply in every shot and every lesson into the shot tree. And then understanding in the shot tree what would need to be adjusted, right? I use in my gear system a lot NG Chun and then Lydia Ko. Lydia Ko is very centered. NG moves her upper rotational center about 3 to 4 inches. I forgot now. Hold on. NG, pull it up. Okay, so we got it. So NG, by the time she gets to P3, has moved her shoulders 2.3 inches off the ball, off of where it started. From P3, it starts to center real hard. By the time she gets to P4, her pelvis is ahead of the upper body and the shoulder sway. Lydia stayed centered the whole time. By the time they get to P5, they have basically the same amount of sway numbers.
So
Vast
the recentering of the upper versus lower.
recentering from has to happen at like P3, right? You can't like the problem with the vast majority of golfers, amateurs, is that once they start to sway, they never stop. And then they never slide. So they never get back to loading the column at 5. So they're always in trouble. And then from 5 down to impact, I call it blowback, the upper center drops back even more. So now they've moved to off the ball. They haven't shifted enough forward to recenter. And then in that 5, it starts tilting back, tilting back, tilting back. And then it creates all sorts of havoc, right? I would say that I don't know anybody that I talk to in Stack and Tilt that if NG showed up at their doorstep or somebody who moved like NG, right, that anybody would change that to fit what people think Stack and Tilt is. I don't, not anybody that I know would change that. Now, I'm not saying that like what I said earlier, but it would apply the same thing to every other system. There are certain people who just take a class and then that's done. They don't keep going back and understand the intricacies, and then they don't get mentors within the organization to keep helping them with questions. So that's not me, right? But like I said, like everybody that I know in the network that I talk to would never change NG to make her Lydia. Nobody. Now, you
Yeah,
might have somebody in the network who is, not continuing with it, you know what I mean? Just did that one class. They might be like, oh, well, you moved to the too much to the right. They're not paying attention that it recentered, that you need to be here. Does that make sense? That person might, but I would say like they don't understand the sophistication of the system enough. But anybody who understands the sophistication of the system that I know, that I talk to, we would never change NG ever.
I met many years ago, before we knew about pressure shifting, or before it was at least out, before it was really out to hardly anybody. I wrote an article, it had to be 17, 18 years ago, for a local magazine that dealt with swing to your body type without knowing any of this stuff, without knowing bomb mechanics or anything. And the two extremes I use, I think Stack and Tilt was just starting to make some big moves into the golf world. And the two examples I used was Jimmy Ballard's kind of a more of a, it had appeared to have more of a lateral. And I'll just say, for sake of argument, and I hope some of the guys don't beat me up with that, I'll just say that Stack and Tilt had more rotational. Okay, is that fair assessment to differentiate
Well, I
the
would
two?
say Stack and Tilt would be not just rotation, but extension.
Okay, so we'll use that. But my point was, at that time when I wrote that article, was without knowing any of this stuff, and it wasn't out, it was not being pushed out yet. We didn't know these things, at least in the coaching world, was that if you took the Ballard method, and look who really excelled in that to a great degree, Rocco Mediate and Hal Sutton, I guess would kind of be Jimmy's two big guys. I know Curtis Strange didn't, he won two as Yeoman's, but Rocco and Hal had bigger pelvic girdles. They were thicker chested, at least at that time. Rocco's lost a lot of weight since. And guys who were really excelling with what I thought were at that time was Stack and Tilt guys was like Sean O'Hare, Justin Rose, uh, Dean Wilson, Mike Weir went to it. So guys who were who were more thin in stature. And my whole point of that article was, without knowing details of scientific theory, I said it would maybe be beneficial to look at your body type to swing a little more towards that way, as it would be to try to be a thicker chested pelvic girdle type guy and swing more of a Stack and Tilt, and be a thinner guy and try to swing more of a Ballard. Again, using two complete extremes that I could find at that time. And I still, as I learn more about these things, I spent some time with EA Tischler, and EA's got some very, very good information on anchor points and axial loads, upper versus lower, linkages, impact linkage, swing linkages, and things like that. And I think that, and he's a big guy on, there's a continuum that you're not just fixed in one, like you just described with the two ladies. One has a more of an upper body versus the lower, but they do recenter at some point in the swing. So I have a tendency to believe that there are, I think what I'm getting at, I think the way that coaches, with all this mountains of data that we talked about, is going to be to differentiate between this data and say, okay, what applies to this individual? And then how do we optimize what they have to get them to play their best, outside of just trying to pigeonhole each golfer in some sort of structured swing methodology?
Well,
And
I
then,
think that's where because I think you hit the nail on the head, right? Where that's where you would need a system, right? So how do you evaluate the player? By how big they are, how small they are, right? Are you going to look at arms length and height? Like, I don't think that's a good way to analyze anybody to figure out what they need. I think you need to hit, batch of 10 balls with a couple of clubs and plot out the shot and
Uh-huh.
sit there and be like, oh, this ball started to the right. Well, if you have, data, it's easier to be done, but you still have to watch the ball. What is the ball doing? And then what does the player need revolving around the fundamentals? So you're not trying to change something. Again, I'm going to go back to the guys that I talk to a lot, like the really good guys within the Stack and Tilt network. They're looking at that and then they're going to give you whatever you need within the system, right? Because if you need contact pieces, okay, your contact is really wacky. You're behind the golf ball, can't hit the middle of the face. What are the things that would influence that the most? Okay, doesn't matter if you're big or thin, you're going to get the pieces that you would need. Big or thin, you hit contact really well. You can't control the distance. Okay, what are the pieces that are controlling the distance that you're a little bit off on? We're going to give you those pieces. If you can hit the ball solid and you can control your distance, which I would define as the north and south, and your east and west is crazy. Okay, now I'm going to break down the east and west even more. Is there any consistency to the start location? And is there any consistency to the curve? Okay. If there's no inconsistency, so if there's inconsistencies to the start location, then I'm going to look at the swing and what pieces have the greatest influence on controlling the club face. Right. And since the player can't feel it anyway, so I'm going to start at setup. I'm going to look at how the anatomical body is set up and then how it's moving in time and space, where things would be, like my stick figure guys, right? Because I don't look at the fat on the body. I don't look at the mass. I just look at where's the joint moving in space, where's the limbs moving, how are they moving, right? How is it affecting the club face? And again, because I'm looking at things as the XYZ axis, where are they having the most issues with
Uh-huh.
in the body and in the club, right? Because that would be the lie angle. That's the forward and back of leaning the shaft forward and leaning it back. And this would be the rotational piece. But we're just looking at the club face. Where's their problems at that? Where's the body affecting that? Then I'm going to give you whatever I need for that. Because then if you're having inconsistency, if you're getting the ball started to the right, I'd want to make sure in my assessment that at least I'm not getting crazy amount of deflection. Or I would say like maybe the lying, a dynamic lie angle is too upright. Then I'm gonna look at those pieces first. And then I'm gonna look at the anatomy. Then I'm gonna look at where you are in time and space because I have a model of where things should kind of be. Okay, what's off? Then I'm gonna give you that. So that's what stack and tilt is. Stack and tilt really has helped me organize everything else I've ever learned. And I've gone through the Scott Talk stuff. I mean, he's fantastic. He kind of helped me organize it. But when I did his, I was already in the stack and tilt stuff. So it just helped me further organize everything that I had because I got all this information and I'm trying to orientate it. And then I was already kind of calling patterns different names, right? And then Scott came along and it was just like, oh shit, like I really need to get better at that to make sure that I don't cross contaminate, right?
Right.
So then I've got files on stuff like, oh, this is what I need to do. This is this one, right? So this swing plane like would be a constant radius pattern, like a tiger, a Rory with very little shifting. Okay, these would be the movement prep drills that you really need to do. These would be my physical fitness drills that I would want to be able to see. And then I have my plane shift patterns. This is what I would do with movement prep. This is what I would do with the training aspect of it in terms of like some of the fitness ball throwing stuff that I do, the rope stuff. So making sure that I don't cross contaminate. Like I said, like that to me was like, holy shit, like that was the biggest missing piece that I had is how do I better organize everything that I have to make sure that I only apply what I need to the player so that I don't stick too much of my preferences into the mix,
Right.
right?
That's what I
Because
mean.
every teacher has one. Anybody who says they don't have preferences, you're so full of crap, it's not even funny. I have my preferences that I like to see. And like you've been following me, you see some of my plays, they all swing a little bit different. There are some principles that we have, but everybody's a little unique in their own aspects keeping things within the framework and then the system in which I teach that revolve everything around got to hit it solid. You got to be able to control the distance. You got to be able to have some prediction to the curve. How do I got to get you to move better? Where are your strengths? Where are you not? Where you're a little bit more flexible? Where are you not? And then I've got to build everything around building up some of the weaknesses or the deficiencies, and then also trying to improve some of the things that they are doing good. Right. I think that's where like kind of goes back into like going back to advice to a new coach, what do you want to do? Right? Because the amount of information that you would need, you can either specialize in one piece or you can, like Preston Combs, I think he does an absolute fan freaking tastic job with his putting stuff, right? Um, if I ever needed anybody, right, for putting, I would have no issues of sending him to him. No questions of having him come out here, right? I've got my guys that I would absolutely trust my players with, right? I'm not sending anybody to anybody that I wouldn't go see. But everybody has developed that I know that is really good at whatever they do, systems and processes. How do I assess somebody? How do I look at everything as a whole? Okay. And then how do you go about corrective exercises to put things in place? Right. And if your teacher and coach doesn't have that, if to me, if your teacher can't answer questions, right, or just tells you, oh, see, this is what Tiger does, but can't tell you the why, I have a problem with that.
Yeah, because it might not pertain to that individual.
Yeah, it's like you have to understand the intricacies. Like, if I'm
Yes.
going to bring my car to the mechanic, it's because he knows everything about the car, right? You have to know how everything kind of works together as a whole. And if you don't understand that, then I think that you're limited to who you can teach, right? Or who you can help, because you're going to take somebody, kind of going back to Ingie, if you really believe that everybody's got to be centered, that's not her biggest problem. And you're going to go and change something that's not the problem, which then is a big problem in the grand scheme of things. Right. So
So
you got to know when to change it and what to change.
So if we use the Rocco Media as an example, and I know some of the younger players might not know who Rocco is because you and I are in our 50s and Rocco's pushing 60, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so.
But right, he's always had a more, or what appears to be more of a lateral pressure would be more of his dominant move, even though he's going to have all three, as you said. If Rocco called you up and said, Dennis, I want you to work with me, how are you going to, are you going to keep that move in there that he's
Depends.
had success with, or it
Depends.
just depends on what he's lacking, what he needs? Like we
So
talked about
again,
this whole show. What is it? What is the medicine for the to
so
cure
what is
the
his
ailment?
miss? Does that make sense? Does he start thinning it? Does he
Yeah.
start, what is it like, right? What is the standard deviations, right? To low point, like, so what is the standard deviations to his pelvis sway and shoulder sway, ribcage sway, and then how much slide is he putting himself back and lining things up early enough, or every now and again is he too late with it? Because that's what starts to happen when I was talking to Dr. Tyson about that stuff. Is that as we get older, because he's week in week out on the senior tour with those guys, right? And I understand what they're all trying to do because he's the physical therapist for a lot of different players who have different a lot of coaches, right? And what they're trying to do. So I ask questions, and he kind of tells me some stuff. So we have some great conversations. And it's kind of what I said. Like, so if Rocco had a lot of success in the swing early on, he's older now. He might not be able to get back in time. And then if he can't get back in time and he has a standard deviation that's too wide, because in gears you get into the reporting, you can see some of the standard
Uh-huh.
deviation numbers, and then you can easily kind of do it yourself, and you can look at the track man. If he starts to have too much standard deviation with the imperatives with low point or swing direction, you have to start to clean some of that stuff up. So if I'd have to remove some of his sway, I would, but I would explain to him before why. Does that make sense? And then we'd
Yeah,
have to figure
because
out, well,
he like you
maybe his
said
trail
before,
foot is too straight and I need to open it up so he can kind of have a greater push to reduce some of the sway. Then I'm going to give you whatever you need, but I'm going to dissect stuff first, right?
because you got to have the buy-in, like you said earlier. You
You got to have the buy-in.
buy, they're just going to fight you on it.
Yeah. So then what's the point of working with the player? Like, I don't see the
See,
point.
I think the way that you describe it is something that is lost, whether it's lost in what the people are hearing, and that because I don't know Michael Manavian, I'm going to reach out to him and Rob Chaney soon, and it's kind of harder to get to Andy Plummer and um oh, the other fellow, I'm drawing a complete
David
blank.
Tarashi,
No, the other stack can tilt Andy and who came up with it? The two guys that
Mike. Yep.
yes,
Mike Bennett.
yes. So and then I'm going to read. I have reached out to the AMG guys to come on at some point. I'd love to do not necessarily a debate, but a discussion with two differing opinions, at least what appears to be online, because I think the explanation, as you just described or went into detail on, is what is missing either in the social media world or at places like an
So,
open forum,
so,
where people don't get a chance to expand upon their explanation. But I get a chance to talk to people multi hours, so I hear it and I'm thinking like everybody is a hell of a lot closer than they think they are.
so you brought up a point that after the open forum, the TPIs got me for about an hour, give or take a little bit afterwards, talking about stuff, right? Um, about some of the stuff that is said online and things along that nature, and ground reaction forces and stuff like that. It got to a point where we were having a conversation, and I'm like, Bud, we are talking about the same thing using different words. No, we're
Yes.
not. I go, yes, we are. I go, you keep talking about ground reaction forces in terms that I don't fully understand your terms. Okay. Because I don't have a plate. And like when I went to Grand Rapids to go see and help Brandon Roby, right? He's got ground reaction force plates. He was blown away because I don't have any, but my ability to change the goddamn ground reaction forces. But he had to talk to me in Gears words, mechanics, because he's like, oh, what the hell is that? He's like, huh? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Never heard of it. You gotta tell me something that I can understand, or else I can't do it. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So when we were talking to the TPI guy, it was the same thing. Like, I'm like, Bob, we're talking the same thing, just different words. No, we're not. I go, oh, yeah, I think we are. Then after about a half hour, it was like, oh, yeah, we are talking. See, I told you, right? I think in certain instances, I think there's a lot of confusion because even the TPI guy had said that there's some people kind of getting into the ground reaction force world, and I could be mistaken. He's like, yeah, these guys are coming in and now they're changing their words. I'm like, oh my gosh, so more goddamn confusion. Right? That's
Mm.
what I told Roby. I'm like, why couldn't we just use the terms, the anatomical terms, and the biomechanics that was already in place? That has been there. Why do you have to come up with these all new words, AP forces? Like, I get it, but why can't we just say it's extension with some hip depth, right? Because it's basically it's angled force. Like, why can't we just do that? Oh, that's not what they did. Why create more confusion?
Yeah.
But it's about a buzz,
Everyone's
right?
got to kind of put their own,
Stamping on it,
yeah, stand their
which creates a
branding,
problem.
and
So
yes,
going back to what you
confuses the
said,
public.
right? Michael Monavi and I, like, and it was funny because like kind of we're talking about what you said because I'm Portuguese. And I was talking to Monavian about it, and I was trying to convince Monavian to go to TPI so that we could have a conversation, right, after the open forum. I'm like, but we need to have a conversation. And he's like, we're gonna have a conversation. I am gonna force the issue with you. I'm gonna create an opportunity with him, and Brandon Roby can attest because he talked to Blackburn, right, to try to get a meeting set up on the last day, but they already had gone. Okay. But Monavian and I were driving in, and I'm like, I just think based on my conversation with TPI, they're talking one thing, we're talking something else, and there's a communication piece because of the terminology, right? That's just me. And then I start talking to him in Portuguese, and he looks at me, I don't know what the hell you're saying. I go, there you go. You really want to
Exactly.
laugh? Homo last day at the PGA show kind of caught us, and then we were talking, and he starts talking to Monavian in Spanish, and I just start fucking cracking up. Oops, sorry. I
You're good.
start cracking up, and he looks at me, and I go, I did the same shit to him this morning. Because even was like, I just think there's a big communication. Like people talk one thing when we think it's something else, right? There's no common language. If you look at like doctors, like they use very common language. When they talk from one person to the next, there's no what the hell are you talking about? And that's kind of what I said to you earlier. Is like we don't have a common language. People talk all sorts of like vague terms, and nothing is very specific. And that's what I said. Like I talked to my guys in the network. Like we know what we're talking about. We're not trying to like what, huh? Like, and a little bit with Brandon Roby when, I was consulting with him, and he would say things like, "But I don't know what you're talking about, man." That in my head could be like five different things. So, like, as our communication got better, it was easier to get right to the subject, right? Because again, like talking to students in a group, if my communication is too vague, everybody in that room is going to interpret it different ways. But if we educate them, vocabulary that would be common language. So when we start talking about external trail shoulder rotation, like we all know what it means.
Hmm.
Nobody can interpret it anything different. It's external trail shoulder or internal or supination, pronation. Does that make sense? So to me, the biggest problem in the industry, it's always been so vague. Everything is vague. You talk to people, it's like, what the hell does that mean?
That's
Right?
why
Everybody trying to put their own spin on things. Like it's
I
like, what the hell does that
I
mean?
give Ping a lot of credit. When you're talking about, I brought up the short game example earlier, but they put under their umbrella or brought them all in. Derek Dominski Joe Mayo and James Ridyard. And I don't know, were you at Open Forum last year, or was it last year? Yeah, last year.
Yeah. That's-
There was a wedge panel that I think I know Joe was on it. I think Brad Faxon was up there. Somebody else was up there, but James was in the Frederick was up there for TrackMan. They were going over uh, depth of angle of attack and all these other things. And James said, "Hang on a minute. Did you consider?" I don't remember what he said, X, Y, and Z. And they said no. I said, "Well, then your calculations are wrong." So at that time, I think Joe and James were not in agreement on some different things as far as chipping is concerned. But I give Ping the credit in that Ping brought in Joe, James, and Derek, and now they're doing a lot of testing. And I can't wait to see what comes out of that. I think everybody's kind of anxiously waiting, but at least it got people who disagreed on a specificity of a certain part of the game to now that, okay, now they're together. Now any differences in their, let's call it dialect or what language they're speaking or anything else like that, they can work through those because now they're under the same umbrella. And I think that the result is going to be phenomenal.
I would agree. But again,
I
like
have
it's the words that everybody uses,
Yes, and what they're
right?
comfortable using. So I
Yeah.
think if we did that with a stack and tilt or someone who has more is big and John Tattersall's big into more lateral forces. He's put a lot of information out on that. So if we had more discussion, and like I said, I'd love to have multiple different. I'd like to create a series of the podcast where I had differing opinions and we had a very very good discussion. I'm not even going to call it a debate. I want to say a very good discussion so that these layers of miscommunication or using a wrong dialect or whatever language you want to use, so that these things can become more common denominators, and both sides can say, "Holy shit, we are more in a line than we ever thought we would," and that would be the goal. Now, if they differ, okay, you guys can differ. Please explain why. And Mr. So and so, do you understand that? Mrs. So and so, do you? Yeah, but we're just gonna agree to disagree. Okay, fine. Everyone can go with that. But I would like to try to bring people like that in. I'll be reaching out. You can tell Michael and
Oh, well,
all those guys that
yeah,
I'll
like
be
I said,
reaching out to them to do it.
Roby can attest to it. Blackburn, from what Roby told me, got the text. He had left already to go work with an LPGA player at I forgot what club it was. So he couldn't do it. The other guys had already left. But I tried to put that together, right? And then I told Manavian that be prepared because if I could put it together, you're going, right? You have a choice. And he's like, okay, fine, right? But I think a lot of it is little miscommunication, right? I think for the industry and for golfers in general, right? Um, in the big picture, it would be very beneficial if we did something like that, right? I'm not even though like I like to bicker sometimes
No,
and kind
not
of
at all.
start some stuff, right?
You don't like to
Uh,
instigate or be a
Well, I'm
provocateur
from
of
the
anything.
Northeast, so anybody in the Northeast and knows me very well, I like to kind of every now and again. But the same people who know, like I like to rib some people and kind of talk some crap. Also know that in the big picture thing, that's kind of what I'm interested in, right? I want good information. I want information in regarding players. Tired of the stupid influencers on social media giving such terrible guiding information that all it's going to do is hurt golfers, do stupid crap. I want to, I can't say I'm going to unify everything, right? But it would be nice to have a conversation with TPI. That I will say I reached out to them the other day because I do want force plates. I think I figured out how to kind of do it in here in the way that I want it being done. That's one of the reasons why I haven't gotten one. And again, like I talked to Manavy the other day about it, he goes, I wouldn't get one. I'm like, You're not getting one. I'm getting one. Right.
Yeah,
And it goes back to Steve Gould. Steve Gould from Gas will tell you, like, the first year I was at the PGA show, I had a long conversation with him. And then I came back and started looking at some stuff and just like, it just didn't work the way I'd wanted to be able to go back and forth between righties and lefties. And I'm telling people like, oh, well, the lefties can't do it. I'm like, hell no, man. I'm a lefty. Like, I'm not going to freaking, hell no, no freaking way. If I ain't doing it for righties and lefties, then hell no, I ain't doing that. And they're like, oh, just move the force plates around. I'm like, there's 30 pounds a piece. Like, I ain't going to freaking move that shit back and forth. I'm not getting any younger. Like, I could probably handle that for like a couple of months, but that's going to get old. And then how long is the calibration piece going to have to move? Oh, heck no, I ain't doing that either.
uh-huh.
But I think I've kind of solved the riddle to the equation. when I was talking to Gears the other day because of the room size. Um, I was talking to them and they're like, "Oh yeah, you can do that." I was like, "I can." He's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, room's too big." I was like, "Oh, I guess it's not too big then." He goes, "No, actually, it's a really good size for a room." Because I'm surprised you built it that big. I'm like, "Well, I just wanted a big room. I don't want to feel people feel claustrophobic in here." So I did reach out to TPI and I asked them some questions about because I know they use Gasp and I know that they do a lot of stuff with Smart to Move. So I have talked to Gasp,
I know
talked to him a bunch.
Tyler Standifer's doing a lot of the research for Smart to Move because I've had him on.
I think that's the name that might be familiar. I have to look at my notes
I'll send you a
because
link to
it
his
was a
show.
lady that I was talking to, and then when I started to ask some questions, she had mentioned the name, and now that you said that, that kind of familiar.
I forget the university he's at, somewhere
I'd have to look up.
Colorado
I'd
in
have to
there
look up,
somewhere.
like I said, in the email because they sent me some information that I wanted because I had asked some questions. And like, I'll send you that information, so they do have it. It's in my email.
I
But I
can
did.
connect you. I've got his email if
Yeah.
you want
So like I
to
said, I'm just
reach out.
trying to figure out like what the name was who I talked to. But like I said, I'm talking to. I talked to those guys at Smart to Move. I talked to Steve Gold. I talked to Tony Morgan sells the Gasp stuff here. I've talked to Brandon Roby about Gasp because he has one. Talked to the guys at TPI on Instagram. Asked them some questions because I've gone through a lot of their program. Like they've helped me quite a bit with things. Right? Do we see things completely eye to eye now? Kind of, sort of, somewhat, not really. But I don't have any issues with that. Right? I like
And
them.
yeah, I don't think
Uh,
it's about someone being winning the discussion. I think it's both sides at the level that they would be at are going to go in there, and both are going to take something out of it.
yeah,
Um,
and I think like again, like as an industry as a whole, I think the first thing that we need is we need to come up with more common language and kind of get away from talking about things that create more confusion with people, right? I think that's a big problem. I think it's a really big problem, right? Um, so vague. I think we have to educate our clients better, right? And at the same time, I always tell people like I'm the smartest, dumbest golfer on the planet. They're like, what? I go, yeah, like I practice very technical, and then that's my swing work, and I try to take that technical piece and try to find some sort of stupid, simple field that I can go play golf with. Then when I get on the golf course, and all of a sudden, like you play golf, like all of a sudden shit hits the fan, like I got to adapt, but I got to understand what I'm supposed to do, right? Because if I apply the wrong fix in the golf course, there goes the rest of the goddamn round.
uh-huh.
Right? So I've got to apply a fix. Or if I'm going to go play today and I'm on the range and like ball ain't doing what it normally needs to do, and this ball is unplayable. I've got to do something, right? And this is some of my problem with some of the mental game guys. Oh, you just got to think better. What the hell is that going to do? Like I got no idea where this goddamn ball is going to go.
You can't will
I
the
what
ball in
part
if
of
you.
positive all? And it's like, oh, think positive. Like try to imagine the ball flying the way you want. Like you don't think I'm not already trying to do that? Like I got no idea what this ball is doing. I need something to get this ball more predictable so I can be like, ooh, okay, I'm calm now. Now I know where this ball is going. Now I know where to aim, right? But if I ain't got no idea where this ball is going, this ball is curving right, curving left, going straight. This thing is going all over the place. I don't care who you are psychologically. You ain't got a shot in hell of starting to have some positive frame of mind going into your round of golf. It ain't going to happen. I don't know. I need some sort of technical quick fix. Give me something, right? Move the handle back, weaken the arm. Okay, that got rid of the hook. Okay, well, that's how I'm going to play today. Tomorrow, I'm going to go back to my pattern and fix the things that I really need to fix. But I need something to go play golf. And anybody who's played golf at a pretty high level or pretty consistently knows like what I did yesterday and what I feel yesterday might not work today.
Uh-uh.
So, and you're going to try to go back to yesterday's fields, you're already in trouble.
Yep, you've already
So,
burned through them. That's just way
yeah,
easy way to say it is that at the bare minimum, that muscle that you had the perfect sequencing on, or that you dialed in the sequencing on, that musculature is going to be a little fatigued. And I know that golfers will say, "Oh no, I hit balls all the time." No, we're talking about your finite detail to control the ball how you want to. If you did it, that's why it's so hard to shoot back-to-back good rounds.
it's crazy hard.
Yes.
Yeah, right. And then again, you just slept. Like shit, you could have done that in the morning and going back in the afternoon and not done it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, how do you get rid of those crazy high rounds? I would just call it it's adaptability. It's having a system to understand pre and post shot Am I going to analyze this or am I not? Okay, I am, but I better have a really nice process that's going to help me understand to get to the root cause so that I can apply some sort of fix so I can get this damn ball around the golf course with some predictability. It might be a little bit more of a grind today because I'm not going to hit anything that close to the pin, but my putting is good, so who cares, right? I just can hit some greens and I can limit the damage and I can at least go post around. Then I can go to bed because tomorrow when I wake up, who the hell knows what I'm going to do? And I think that's the best thing about the game that I freaking love. And I think the people who struggle the most can't accept that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think
Like
more
there's
teachers
going to
focus
be tons of
on.
variations, right? But there are things that I've got to be able to do and then move away from, move to get this ball in the hole. And I think that's what really helped me playing other sports, right? Is especially the mental game thing, because that was the hardest thing for me when I first started playing golf. The dead time to beat yourself up. Like,
A
because
lot
in
of time,
soccer,
a
like
lot of that in golf.
in soccer, as an example, like if I was trying to hit it down the left-hand wing to the outside part of the player's shoulder between him and the end line, and I put it to the inside, he's not going to stop and go, "Too bad you didn't hit it over there." Right? He makes the adjustment, and you're like, "Oh shit! Oh, he's got it." So you gotta, okay, where's he had it? Now you have to go. You make a run so you can provide support where everybody else's is, right? So it's automatically like, okay, we're good. Quick glance of the field. Where do I got to go now? Right?
Reactionary.
Basketball,
A
same thing.
lot
Yeah,
more
like
reactionary.
and but I'm not beating myself up, even though I know I messed that up. But in golf, I get to wait for everybody else to hit. I'm in the right trees now. Now I'm walking down the fairway. Oh my God, I closed the club face. Now in the next tee shot, like I gotta make sure I don't close the club face. And then versus focusing on what I want to have. Now I'm like, oh, don't make this ball go to the right. I don't want to close the club face. No, I hit it left. And all of a sudden you're dead again. Um, that's what I mean. Like that was the biggest thing that I struggled with. And then I started like thinking more and more about it. It's like, Dennis, you're never perfect in anything else you played. You just either my team got it or the other team got it. And then you had to go figure out where you needed to be and what you needed to do. Where in golf, you don't react. There's just too much dead time to beat yourself up over stuff that you need to learn to let it go. And
That
that's where
is
my post
another.
shot routine came into play. It's like, am I going to bother with this thing or just golf because you're going to hit a ball sideways every now and again?
Yes,
Ah, that's just golf. Okay, forget it.
post shot routine is a developed skill. The same as swing speed increases. As you just mentioned, particularly people who come from other sports. Because I used to come out of playing basketball in the winter to golf in the spring, and it was much harder than it was to go from playing golf in the fall, which is where I grew up in
Oh, yeah.
Michigan. Our season was in the fall, and then to go into basketball, it was like, wow, this is so much easier.
Yeah.
Not beating myself up
Yeah.
for hours at a time.
Yeah. And that's why
Uh,
it's nice for kids to have these experiences playing other sports, specifically as it relates to the mental game, right? Because you start, talking to kids. Like I had this one kid who was really good, but he was a baseball pitcher. He just could not let go. That the ball was supposed to curve to the left, and it went straight. Now instead of being 10 feet, he's 30 feet. But he hit a green, and he's on the right side, right? He couldn't let that go, and I'm like, "But you're a baseball pitcher, right?" He's like, "Yeah." So if you want to throw a curveball bottom right as a right-hander, so I don't understand the plate, but the bottom left of the plate and the ball doesn't curve and it sits high to the inside and you still
it's
get
a
the
home
strike,
run.
right? No, you still get the strike, right? You still get
Hanging
the
curve,
strike,
it's gone.
right? I know, but I give him, you still got the strike, right? You're going to say, no, I wanted to go bottom left. I don't want the strike. It's a ball. He goes, oh, hell no, it's a strike. You hit a green.
Same
You know,
thing.
it's the same thing. He didn't hit the home run. You didn't hit the straight shot into the hazard. Who cares? You hit the green. Ultimately, you're in the fairway. You want to hit the green. Yes, you want to hit your shape because that's what you're trying to do, but you're not going to hit that shape all day. So I made a mistake and it's very playable. Next, he couldn't let that go. But in baseball, like the funny thing was like, he goes, oh yeah, we got the strike. I go, so what happens to the guy hit it? He goes, did it get an out? I'm like, yeah, you got an out. And then who cares? You got an out. I go, so why can't you play golf like that?
Doesn't know how.
I'm
Doesn't
like, are
know
you trying to
how.
be any less perfect in baseball? Or are you trying to throw the pitch how you see it? He goes, it's the same thing, but you make mistakes. But because you got the end result of what you wanted, you still got the strike or you got the out and didn't leave the ballpark, you don't care. But in golf, some people can't get that. They only expect to hit the pearl perfect. And if it's not perfect, then it's a problem. And they don't understand what average is.
I
Like I always
think
tell my
because
players, it's a shotgun, not a rifle.
yeah,
Shotgun.
Anybody who watches golf on TV, if they're gravitating towards golf from another sport, which they probably will at some point, and if they watch golf on
Oh
TV
my God, it
because
kills them.
now they're interested, yes, because, and I got to remind people, I said, look, you're seeing the best in the world for a particular week. I
Yeah,
went through this myself. Growing up as a kid watching Harbortown, I didn't realize that the fairway on 18 in the landing zone was basically 100 yards wide. I always thought it was this little strip of land that was like 15 yards wide. I'm like, my God, are those guys unbelievable? They can hit 15-yard strip at 280 to 300 yards. I thought, and now you got to think, for 10 years in my mind, I thought that
yeah,
pros were that good.
yeah.
And
Oh, they
when I
are, but yeah,
yeah,
there's
when I
more
started to
play.
play, I thought it had to be like that all the time. And then I got to Harbortown, I'm like, this is 85 yards wide.
Yeah,
So
like
my image was blown.
I have some players like when they come to the area, the tour, like you have to go. You have to find a group, one group, and follow them for 6, 7, 8 holes, and then you can do whatever you want, and then come back and tell me. Like I had one of my girls go there this year. Finally, I got her to go. She never wanted to go. I'm like, just go. So a couple of her friends went. They went. She came back. She's like, those guys suck. I'm like, what? She goes, they hit the ball all over the joint. Oh, like you.
Yes,
Oh, so they're not always hitting the middle of the fairway and hit the ball to 3 feet, right? And then she looks at me. She's like, I hate you. I go, why? I go,
because you're
because
right.
you think you're supposed to hit every fairway dead straight, hit the ball to like 3 feet, and then you hit the best players in the world, one group, and they hit it all over the place. But when you watch it on TV, you only see the best shots. I go, so your perspective of what you need to do versus what you have to do is so different. But when you go watch them live, they're good, right? But they hit the ball all over the place. Not everybody's on 24/7,
No, it's
but
not
they can still
possible.
post a good score,
You know what
right?
else I think that comes from juniors? They play junior golf and they get good in junior golf. Is they associate their best rounds with then when they were hitting it how they wanted to. So now it's some way, shape, or form. They think in order to score their to get their next look. Let's say they broke par. So now to break par more often, they think they have to do that all the time. I think there's
And
an
I know there's
association
so
there.
many ways,
Yes.
so many
So
ways.
so
Like I
so
love
so, some of
using
my best rounds
arcos.
were when I
Yeah,
was hitting it crooked. I
yeah.
just happened to chip and putt it well, and it didn't give strokes away. I played more conservative. I made more 20 footers, and there's 7 under.
But the same thing is like we use arcos. Like, and I show the kids, it's like, hey, you shot 72. You shot 72 yesterday. You shot 72 today. Look how different everything is. So there's so many ways to shoot 72, right? The thing is, if you want to go make 72, 68, that 8 foot, that 7 foot putt, the green that you hit, and you didn't hit it close and you three putted, you've got to save some of those shots at some point. That's how you get to that 68, right? It's more about not making the simple mistakes because very often the tall players don't make simple mistakes. When they have a chance, they capitalize for the most part. When you hit a green and you're too far away, you three putt, and then you're chasing, trying to hit the ball perfect and hitting the ball close to the pin, but you're not practicing those long range putts that every now and again you have. Look at your three putt percentage when you're out here. You three putt from out here 35% of the time. Like you're just throwing away shots. Go practice it. Get better at it.
Yes.
Because you can't expect to hit the ball close every damn day. It's not going to happen. Pro
You're going to
players don't
burn
do that.
yourself out. No, they don't.
Look at the stats. Stop watching TV. Right? You go look at the stats in the PGA Tour, and I showed them on, when you go to the PGA Tour website, they're like, "Oh my God, they're that far from the pin." I'm like, "Yeah," and you think you need to be 5 feet? Like, holy
Uh-huh.
Christ! But you remember the one rifle that you hit 3 weeks ago, and you want to do that all day, but you're not remembering, the other ones that you're about 20 feet, right? Like that, you got to understand what your pattern is and learn how to play your pattern.
That's right. Well,
But
I want to be respectful of your time. We've been John for quite some time. I thought we probably would. But you got a few minutes to do a rapid fire emergency 9. It's kind of wrap up the show. And
yeah, no, like
that,
I'm not doing much today. I've got some guys coming out at 4 o'clock. My wife was supposed to work today.
well, I'm sure we
So
could talk until 4 o'clock, but
yeah, I got nothing to do. We're gonna go out for lunch in a little while. She went for a walk. She got the boys, so we're gonna go for lunch, and then I got to come back to work because I scheduled some people at work because she was supposed to work, and then yesterday we kind of celebrated, the holiday because we both didn't work in the afternoon. Um, so she's a nurse, so she was supposed to work. She didn't have to go to work today. And then we talked about it before. She's like, "Yeah, why not? Like, if you want to be home with the boys all day, then fine. If not, then go to work because most likely I'm going to have to go to work." So I was like, "All right." So we celebrated yesterday. So I don't have anything to do for a couple hours. I'm going to practice. I might go to the club to go hit some balls or something to play. I
there
don't
you
know,
go.
but
Not
they
a bad
usually have.
alternative.
They have that. So it depends after lunch. So the boys are out of school now, but it is a holiday anyway. So we'll see what we're going to do.
So it's a good to have options and good to have fun options with your family.
Yeah, it's fun. You know, I had kids when I was older. I've been around junior golf for a real long time. I had conversations with my dad about how I was. You know, you have kids.
Not that I know of.
Okay, so if you had kids, then and anybody who has kids, they would agree that, you know, when the kids are young, they want to be around you, and then it gets a certain age, it's all about your friends. You don't want to be with your
Yes.
parents anymore. So my kids are still at that age that they want to hang out with mom and dad,
Yeah, take
right?
advantage of it.
So I'm trying to take advantage of it as much as I possibly can. So I hear that from my dad. I hear that from, you know, parents, right? I see it with kids, you know, that I've had for a long time, that they're always with the parents. And now that they got a driver's license, like, I haven't seen your parents in a while. How are they? I don't know. I haven't seen them in a couple of days. Right. And it's just like, oh, that day is coming. So, you know, the boys want to be with us. So I try to take advantage of that as much as I possibly can. It was about me when I was younger, trying to play professional soccer, trying to play on a PGA tour, playing professional golf. And then it was like, okay, I got to transition into teaching. I got to go travel the dang country to go learn. So we didn't have kids until I was kind of a little bit more established with what I wanted, to have some stability so that I could be around them a bit more, or as much as I possibly can. So like when I can, I like to play golf, but I prefer to spend time with the kids because they still want to spend time with me. So
Emergency nine. Everyone, the longtime listeners know the first song or the first question, the last question have been the same in basically every episode. And I think you're 180th episode. We're almost 200 episodes. But everything else we kind of mix and match. But it's a fun way to wrap up. So if you're playing your member guest, or your pro career took off all of a sudden, Monavian got you striping it and making every putt you looked at, and you made the Ryder Cup, and you're walking up to the first tee at the Ryder Cup, or your member guest, what song are you going to have them play?
oh boy.
You want to get the crowd all pumped up and on your side. What song are you going to crank over the
Okay. So
loudspeaker?
I'm not a big baseball fan. I grew up in Providence, so we had the Red Sox in the backyard.
Mhm.
But I think baseball is awful watching on TV.
It is.
I just I can do it. And most of my friends were Sox fans, so they'd ask me to go watch, you know, baseball. Like, no, can we just go do something else? And then I would go just because we'd go to the bar and, you know, kind of hang out and stuff. Um, but that Yankees Red Sox rivalry made
Mhm.
me laugh, because then like the Sox, you know, to the whole Bambino curse that you had to learn about and stuff like that was kind of funny to me. But like, you know, sure as anything, you start learning about the curse of that Bambino, whatever that thing was, and
Mhm.
Red Sox just always threw it away, and I was always laughing, and then you get mad at me. So then I'm like, oh, this baseball's now fun. So then I became a fake Yankees fan,
Just
just to
irritate the
just
shit
to
out of
needle them a
them.
little bit, right? So Sandman, I did like Mariano Rivera. I thought like he was like really dominant, right? It created that lure of like when he came in, it was over for the most part. So Sandman. I'm not.
Okay.
I like Metallica, but I would have to say the Sandman. I like
That's a
that.
good song. Especially for us
I think
guys that
it's
are in our
Sandman, if I'm not
50s.
mistaken.
Enter Sandman, yeah, from
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Metallica.
Oh, I love that. I thought that was awesome. But again, like I always had that mentality playing soccer. Like if there was free kicks and stuff like that, like I was going to end the game like it was going in. You know what I mean? So I
Mhm.
always had that kind of mentality. So they like kind of get never really thought about it too much. You asked me that question. First name that would pop into my, because I've always liked him. I like that lure of the baseball thing of the song coming in. So if it had to be something, it would be that.
Oh, it's a good one. It's a very good one. Um, let's say Hollywood calls you and they say, Dennis, we've been following your career. Is very interesting. Multi sports, great golf coach, medical biomedical engineer. You've done a lot of cool things, but we want to make a movie about your life, and we're going to let you or your wife cast whatever actor to play you. Who are you going to
Boy,
have them cast?
this is a bad question for me.
Well, maybe we'll rephrase it. We'll say, who is your wife going to have them cast as you, if she could pick?
That's kind of a bad question, because like we don't watch much TV, and I don't
Okay,
know actors' names. It's the same thing. Like
no problem. We
I
skip
don't
that
I
one.
don't know many songs, but I do know the Sandman one. Um, we got into Lost. We're watching Lost now again on repeat. But for the most part, when the TV's on,
Uh-huh.
We have a 9 and 5-year-olds, so it's Moana and all that other good stuff,
You know
right?
all the songs.
Right. So I know that stuff. Like, uh, oh man, like I don't know, like I guess I would have to say, like in terms of movies, like I just introduced Emily. She was over the house the other day watching the kids. When I got home, we were just chatting. I was flipping through the station, and then Top Gun was on, the new one, Maverick. So I'm like, oh shit, like because I like
Very
that
cool.
movie, right?
Yes.
So I'm like, have you watched this? And she's like, no. I'm like, your dad was in the military. Like, how do you not watch this at home with him? And she's like, well, I know that, he's going to watch it, but no, I've never watched it. And I'm just like, man, you know what you're missing, right? So we watched that. I like Tom Cruise. I like the Mission Impossible movies as well. From my limited people off the top of my head of
All right, we'll
names,
go. We'll
I'll
go
say
with
Tom
Tom
Cruise then,
Cruise.
I
There
guess.
you go.
The other one I would know is like I don't know. It'd have to be like I would say from Lost, the doc, whoever his name is. I don't even know the doctor's name.
I don't know. I haven't seen Lost, but
Oh,
I'll
I
check
like
that
it.
out.
It's fun. Yeah, so we're like season 4 now, catching up to it.
We're big on Mobland that's out right now.
What is
Uh,
it?
Mobland. It's got Tom Hardy. Pierce Brosnan is the head of a family syndicate in London. It's very Tom Hardy's the main character. Um, Helen Mirren plays Pierce Brosnan's wife, and then you have the dysfunction of that world and the family aspect of it. But Tom Hardy's the main character. So if you like anything that has to do with mob criminal slash series, it's really good. It just had the 9th episode yesterday. Their season finales next week, so check
Okay.
that one out if
Yeah,
if
so
you
if it's
like
on
that
like
stuff.
Netflix or something, then that would be something. Because like I
It's
said,
on.
we don't.
I think it's on Paramount, and
Okay.
so wherever you get your Paramount Plus, you can probably watch it on
Yeah,
there.
like we'll have to look into it a little bit because it's nice kind of, because we watch it late after the kids go to sleep.
Uh-huh.
We'll watch like an episode or two. But like outside of that, like I've never been much into watching TV. I like being outside. I like doing stuff. Somebody else had mentioned the other day. I wrote it down. It's on the other side of the building because we were talking about TV and he was talking about this TV show that he's watching. Talking about. He goes, "How do you not watch it?" I'm like, man, I don't watch a lot of TV. Like, we'll talk about Moana and all that other stuff that the boys watch, the pandas. They're like, I got all that for you. But he's like, Dennis, you have to watch it. You go, I'm just watching Lost right now. He's like, you have to watch it. So I was like, all right, so write it down, and then I go, I'll talk to the wife about it, but we'll see. But it's nice because like we're getting into like the really warm weather, and I
You don't want to be
don't want to
inside.
be inside, right? At home, we would watch a little bit more when we were living in New England because the winters were so long and it was so cold. Like you kind
Uh-huh.
of got into a few more things and watched a little bit more TV. But as soon as the sun came out, it was like we were always out. I don't like, we would go to friends' house pools. We'd be going out all the time. And like the weather's changing here. It's the same thing. Like I want to get up early. I want to go play golf before I have to come to work, right? The course opens up at 7. So I'm getting old. You get tired during the day. So I don't like going to bed at 11 o'clock anymore like we used to. So once the kids go down, every now and again, we'll watch a couple of things of Lost or an episode of Lost and then go to bed. But as the summer goes on, like the boys just want to go to the pool all day, right? So it's just like, so it's just a beat. By the time like 9 o'clock comes around, it's like,
Yeah, that's about. But usually it was 7, 8 o'clock after we eat. I'll watch some series. Mobland, Gangs of London. We watch that one.
okay,
There was a martial art one with gangs in late 1800s San Francisco called Warrior. It was taken from Bruce Lee's writings, which actually became Kung Fu. So they kind of twisted it to keep it in the city. But I just like stuff to shut my brain off and
yeah, so do I
entertain. I'm
sometimes, yeah,
going so many directions during the day. By 7, 8 o'clock, I'm not answering the phone, not doing shit.
yeah,
I'm just going to go
yeah,
brain dead and watch some entertainment
yeah.
and wind myself down.
Well, I liked Scarface, so that was kind of fun.
Mm.
That
The
movie. So if
series
anything that, no,
or the
I never
movie?
watched the series. I
The
just
movie
watched the
was
movie.
great.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
So
I
anything that
probably
would
watched that
revolve
50
around that
times.
kind of stuff is kind of cool. I kind of like that. I like some Mission Impossible things like I said, like just something that you can
It's
really get
entertaining.
into,
Yes,
and
you get
and
lost
and
in it.
it's gonna keep you up because anything that's just too slow is like I'm gonna pass out. Like I ain't gonna watch that stuff, right? I like action movies, I guess you could say.
I'm with you. Uh, let's see. If you could give a lesson to any historical figure, Who would it be? Basically, anybody you wanted to. Who would you like to give a lesson to?
Anybody? Man, I don't know. It's gonna be very controversial. I'll say it anyways. That's all right.
All right, that
Trump.
hey, keep it
He's
your
fascinating.
mantra.
Trump. He's fascinating to me.
Go ahead, shoot.
Trump.
Who?
Trump. Donald Trump.
But there you go.
Right? He plays golf like he's. People get mad at him now. They used to like him. Now they don't like him.
Uh-huh.
Right?
I think
Like,
that's a very good one. I didn't even think of that. That's a
I don't like. I don't. I wouldn't say I like him. I don't like him. I don't even know who the guy is. So for me to kind of listen to what the media has to say about him now, whereas before they used to love him and now they hate him, like that to me is kind of weird, right? Um,
well, I
I
think
just think it's
in some
fascinating.
ways, I think in some ways it's similar to what we were talking about in that speaking different languages. So like Bill Maher, Kid Rock got Bill Maher to go to the White House and have dinner with Trump,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and then Maher went on his show and said he was completely different
yeah. Because I saw
at
that.
dinner than he
Yeah,
was on TV.
I saw
It's
that.
so yeah. I think it'd be very interesting to one on one and talk
I,
golf, and
I,
he's
I
going
do
to
like
talk about different things.
Bill Maher's kind of funny now that you brought him up because, and maybe I'm wrong, but because I don't really pay a whole lot of attention to politics and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'm just too busy to worry about that other stuff, right? And to me, politicians are all going to say whatever they want to say to get them elected, and they're going to do whatever the people want them to do, right? Um, but Bill Maher, and you can correct me if I'm wrong if you kind of paid more attention, but he was way more left leaning before, and he kind of seems to be kind of
He was, and
moving a
then when
little bit more,
yes, when
which
things
is
got a
kind of
little crazy,
fascinating because he's calling out some craziness that I always thought was crazy, right? But he's calling that stuff out, and then I think it's funny is that now that he's calling it out, people are calling him out, and it's just like, but everything is like pretty normal. Like I don't understand how you can think that way. He would be somebody, now that you brought him up, would be Trump. He would be another one that I would be like, what made him all of a sudden kind of start to move a little bit more to the middle? Because I thought he was always like,
well,
especially during like Trump's
if you
first
can,
presidency and stuff like that, he was very left, very anti-Trump. But I don't think he had many issues with Trump. Like that would be my question to anybody. Did he have a lot of issues with Trump before he ran? Like I know that the View, for instance, they're funny as hell, if you ask me, because they used to have him on the show, and I've seen videos of that on Twitter. They're all
hugging
laughing
him,
and loving
loving
him, and
on,
now they
yes.
kill him. Like, oh my god, it's like what did he do to you guys? Like, I'm just curious.
Well, Mayor's another example in that I thought he was very extreme left or heavily
Oh,
leaning that way. Bill
oh,
Maher,
Mayor, yeah, yeah,
Mayor,
Mayor,
and then
whatever.
when he was on Rogan, I listened to that whole episode and was like, he's nothing on this like he is on his show. So you
Hmm.
got ratings and everything else like that. That's why
Yeah,
when I started this podcast, I said I don't care about rating, I don't care about making money. I just want to talk to people, learn more about golf, and get some interesting guests on.
I think
And
Rogan would be an
that's what's
interesting
been.
one too.
Yeah.
You brought him up. You
Yep.
know, because he's not afraid to say what he wants, right? I think like people like that I like because I guess I'm a little bit like that, right? If I don't like
Well,
something, I'm going to tell you. And
I
if
think
you don't want my answer, don't ask me.
at least if they're going to be forthright and say something, and they're not going to have a big governor on thing. At least even if you disagree with them, you know where they're coming from. There's a big respect aspect to that. That
Yeah,
okay,
like
I don't have to worry about them saying something behind my back. They might say something I don't like, but at least I know they're straight up.
yeah, like everybody who knows me. Like you don't really want me to answer the question, don't ask it because you might not like the answer, but you're going to get an honest answer. And if I say something behind your back, it's because I'm going to say it in front of your face, right? I'm very straightforward with things, and some people like that, and some people don't. I don't beat around the bush, right? Um, so people like that, sometimes can kind of get misunderstood, right? Because I know sometimes some of my people like get really mad at me, and then after a while, they're like, "Oh, that's what you meant." I'm like, "I thought it was pretty clear, but at least to me it was clear, right?" So, misunderstandings and stuff like that. But like people like that are kind of fascinating to me, right? So, like I said, Trump would probably be number one, like because I've never really thought about it, to be honest with you. Now that you brought up Mayor Bill Maher or whatever his last name is, like I think he'd be kind of fascinating because I think he'd probably be a little bit more open now than what remember him being before, because he was
Yes.
so left, right? Or whatever you call that stuff. I don't know. I think it's called left now, left leaning. But I think like he's like what made him, change to kind of change his views. Like That those people like that are very interesting. And it would be the same thing for like, I don't even know if that's actually the case, to be honest with you. If somebody who's very right leaning is now all of a sudden left leaning, like what made you like do a complete 360? Like I'd love to have conversations with people like that because I think that's fun.
I would agree. I got the podcast.
Yeah,
So it's
like I
been
do,
6 years of
just
having cool
conversation like
discussions.
that you probably will never have with somebody else, and you kind of because I kind of don't care. At the same time, like whatever you want to say it. Like I don't really care, but I'm always fascinating with how people come around, I guess you could say, or change their views. Like what happened for somebody to go do that. Um, so yeah, I would start with him. It'd be fun.
Okay.
And he
That'd be
plays golf,
that.
so you know,
Yeah, that'd be a very cool one.
yeah.
If you could stick a restaurant in your kitchen, can be a chain, can be a local, can be a national. What restaurant are you going to put in there? That any time of day you go down to your kitchen and get that food.
Anything Portuguese, I miss it. Because back home, like we had a lot of them. In Texas, it's like you don't. So like Portuguese seafood, right? Because I miss the seafood from the Northeast. Portuguese
Uh-huh.
food, I don't get that. And then like I get mad at my mom a lot, and she knows by now because I've been out of there about 13 years now. Like when I go home, I don't want steak. I don't want chicken. I want fish. I want some sort of Portuguese dish because you ain't
Uh-huh.
getting that stuff here. And no offense, the steaks and stuff like that are better down here than they are up there. So like that's the kind of food that I really miss. I miss the Portuguese and I miss the fish.
Yeah, I'm the same. When I go home, I grew up. I'm Serbian, and grew up very. Every weekend was at the Serbian Social Center, and the holidays and everything. When I go there, I splurge on that stuff or try
Yeah.
to.
Like I miss we have Portuguese rolls that the Portuguese bakery makes that my dad will go and get.
Uh-huh.
By the time he gets home, it's warm because they just made it. And then you start putting, oh my God, it's just like I had two
How
or
many do
three of
you eat?
them.
6?
Oh, I have at least two or three. And they're big. They're like that, but they're so light. The boys like it, but they don't like the outside. They just eat the inside. But like my dad's gonna go get 12 because then I'll eat two or three. The boys have a couple. Carrie has a couple. And they're like, you want eggs? No. You want bread again? Yeah. I want bread for the next 5 days because that's how long I'm going to be home for. Like I can get eggs at home. I got bacon at home. I don't want any of that stuff. I
Yeah,
can't
I
get
did
any
that
rolls, and
last
they're only
summer.
good when they're fresh. So like, no, it's got to be warm. So yeah.
I went home. There was a Serbian lady has a bakery, and I went there 6 days in a row. Had donuts 6 days in
Oh
a row
yeah,
for breakfast. Had at least
yeah,
3 a day.
yeah. You have to. It's like
Yep.
you miss it. Like there's certain things that I grew up because I lived there a long time, right? That like that's what I want. That's what I crave. And then you start looking at the schedule. Like, oh man, 3 more weeks before we get this. 3 more weeks, and I was already saying to my mom, make sure you have this, and I want this, and I want the shrimp, and then I want the sea bass. I want to go to this Portuguese restaurant on this day. So if you need reservations, make sure you go get the reservations.
Yes.
I want to go here, right? So like I already start getting my list together and start sending it to her so to prepare her for stuff.
Get her ready.
Oh yes.
Uh, this one I always ask coaches, if there is one. Do you have any particular favorite training aid that you like to use?
Simplicity wise, yeah, it's the Total Golf Trainer. Very simple. That whole pack that they have, kind of like the jack of all trades, and it provides enough feedback for pretty much anything and everything that I would want to be able to work on with somebody. So yeah, I would say they would be first, and then I like the Hanger training game. Those would be my two.
Cool. Who would be on your Mount Rushmore of coaches?
Okay, hold on. In general, the people who've influenced me.
Either or. Just you get to pick four. What four are you putting up there in stone?
Four. Oh boy. Andy Manavian. I like what John Sinclair did for me in 3D.
John's a good guy.
Fourth. Brooks Sweeney.
Okay. Your this one I'm interested to hear because you like a lot of different things. Your favorite purchase in the last 12 months under $1,000 can be golf related, can be something you bought for your house, can be some kind of tech device you got, whatever your favorite thing that you bought in the last year under $1,000 bucks.
I don't think I bought anything. To be honest with you. I ha
You watch the
Man,
same TV show, you don't buy anything. You got to do some more. You do good. I'm sure you do well.
yeah,
You got to start enjoying it.
I'm very boring. Especially like, oh,
Okay,
it's
go.
I would say uh, they're more expensive would be the Cobra 3D printed irons.
Okay, there you go.
So they're a little more than 1,000, right? But
Yes, a little bit.
um, they are freaking fantastic,
Do you
unbelievable
find that
irons.
they're hotter?
No, they're not
Uh,
hot.
like you find that you hit it longer. Let's say compared to the same loft as your old 7 iron, you hit the new
Oh,
7 iron, the new
my
one
my
longer.
the lofts are different.
Okay.
So like my issue with some of the hot face stuff, like you look at the Forge Tech and Cobra P790s, P770s, anything like that. Every now and again, when you get that center one, that thing goes like 10 yards longer
Yes.
than what you're expecting. The 3D printed, they go way further. They're about my 3/4 3D printed irons go the full distance of my Cobra MBs. When I hit the 3D printed irons hard, they go about 15 yards further. But when I go to hit it hard, it's always about 15 yards further, except when I miss hit it. So I have never seen a hot one yet. So it's
You're
weird.
just so do you think the extra distance when you go at it is from the
It's for my
slightly
speed,
stronger
because my
loft?
speed, yeah, and then my
Another.
speed.
Okay. So
So I decrease. I'll decrease the club a little bit. I'll swing faster. The lofts are a little stronger by 4 degrees, but it's the overall speed that I'm putting into the club that makes the ball jump more, and then it goes higher for me because there's 100 grams in the club
Mhm.
and it's low. So when I swing faster, it gets up in the air way more and it just carries further, but it doesn't come out hot. Like it's fast, but I have a lot of rounds with them. I have never seen anything like this ball's supposed to go 7 iron, 200. It's a 200 yard or 200 yard swing for the 7 iron. I've not seen anything come out 210. I've seen like 195, 192 because I didn't hit it really good. But anything that's kind of hit in the middle, I've not seen 210, 212 out of it. Yeah. Not
okay,
saying it's not
cool.
going to happen. I just haven't seen it. And I've seen it way more with, if I hit those Forge Tech every now and again, like in 10 shots, I'll get two that are going to jump. Same thing with the P790s, P770s. 2, 3, and 10 are like, whoa. Like, so, um, yeah, I would say they're like really, really consistent with ball speeds. There's no jumpers. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it on the golf course, like especially like those, ones I've mentioned. You get and the first cut, you get a little bit of grass behind the ball. You're like, oh shit, right?
Gone.
I have never had that feeling of that ball jumping. It's coming out the way it's going to come out the way I interpret the lie, and then the amount of force I'm putting into it. They are just like I can't explain because it doesn't make sense, to be honest with you. But then you start understanding how they build it, right? It's just forgiving. It's not hot. They're hot because they're the loft, but they need a little less loft because then they got so much weight low.
In the bottom, yeah.
So you have to offset those pieces, or else if you had like more loft, you'd hit these crazy stupid moon balls.
Let's see, a couple more, and then we'll wrap up. Of these two statements, which one would describe you better? Do you love to win or you hate to lose?
I hate to lose. I don't
It's
like
very
losing.
interesting when I ask that question. I don't know what the hell it means. It's a
I
cool
don't like
question.
losing. Yeah, I don't like
I-
losing to anything. I don't even like when my players lose, but they're going to lose.
yes, part of the
Yeah, I don't.
process.
Winning takes care of itself. I hate losing. That was one of the things that I did not like too much about soccer and hockey is that I could play lights out and still lose because somebody else didn't do their job.
Uh-huh.
With golf, I'm not going to win every week, but I control everything. I control my destiny. And if I beat the golf course better than everybody else did, then I have put myself in a position to win. I just don't. I
You're
don't
gonna
like losing in
you'll be
anything.
successful.
Yeah.
If you do the thing you're supposed to, you'd be successful.
Oh,
So yeah,
so
that
yeah,
makes
so
sense.
I hate losing. I don't like that. Yeah,
And then the last one, in your opinion, as far as golfers are concerned, who's the GOAT, greatest of all time?
that's a great question. That's a great question, and I think an easy one. I think it's Tiger. Like I like he might not have the majors that that Nicholas had, right? Um, and I know like everybody kind of talks about that stuff in
Uh-huh.
there, but I think there are things that happened that were out of his control. to some extent, and then some things that were in his control when he's deciding to, you know, change coaches and do some of the shenanigans that he was doing. Some of that stuff is self-inflicted, but I still think, like, if you look at everything as a whole, and then, I still think that he did things that are way more impressive than Nicholas. And I don't think if Nicholas was in who he was in this generation when Tiger was in his prime, I don't think he could beat Tiger on a regular basis. I just don't.
Okay.
I think Tiger
It
had things that nobody else had.
it's been fairly close. Tiger has the edge, and it's been largely demographic. Really, anybody 50 and under pretty much has gone. Well, I'd probably say 40 and under is heavily Tiger. 40 to say 50, 55 is split, and then over 55 has gone Jack. It's been very demographic driven. But
Well,
I would
I
say
guess it's
Tiger
some.
has a slight edge. And
I think a lot of it also is like 'cause I never really got to see Jack play live, but at the same time, you know, you look at things as a whole, right? And you have to kind of look at things kind of out of the box because money wise, right? The money was different between the two generations. And Tiger really didn't care about the wins. The wins took care of themselves. He was more worried about majors and doing stuff like that. I remember an interview with Stevie Williams when he was there with Tiger. Was that at the end of tournaments they had the prize list money on the sheet where you'd sign the scorecards, and he'd always say Tiger never looked at how much money he won, where everybody else was always looking. He didn't care, and I know that Tiger would do things kind of leading up to a major that he wanted to do in the major, and then he would apply it in tournaments before to get the
yeah,
tournament reps and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So that he would get comfortable to do it in the majors. So I think that he could have potentially had more wins than he had, right? Uh, if he didn't change coaches, right? If he didn't get hurt, right? All the years that he lost, right? Where you look at like Nicholas didn't change anything, but there was no downtime or rebuilding time for him. Whereas Tiger had too much of it, in my opinion. I think
I would agree. I don't know.
you look at
I know he wanted to
Tiger,
own his swing, but
yeah, you
yeah,
look at Tiger, and like you start to see some of the transgressions he had outside of golf that led to some of those issues. You can see that, but again, it could have made Tiger, right? Chasing perfection, right? But also could have been damning to him because, like, what if he never left Butch? Or let's say he left Butch and he kind of kept things the way Butch had them, or he never went to Haney and then had that time period where he was struggling and then got good and then, got injured and then had to, do it again. Like, if he did and stayed the course with, like what Nicholas did and kind of just kept tweaking what he had
yeah.
without versus a wholesale change, he easily destroys, I think, right, all of Nicholas's records in terms of the majors. That's just
Yeah,
it.
I think a lot of people are in line with that. It'd be
Yeah,
hard to
so
argue.
that's why I said like I wouldn't, because I think anybody who would say no, you start to kind of explain it like that, and like you apply some basic logic to the equation. Like I think everybody who I ever talked to was like, yeah, you're right. He'd destroy. So then you have to give it to him in that sense, because that would have been he is better, but he also had issues. Because like if you look at any like professional athlete, not even in just golf, but like pitchers and hitters and things like that, like most people don't overhaul what they do when they get there. He did it a few times, right?
Multiple times.
So it's like, man, like that's kind of crazy to do, but he did.
I guess in some way, shape, or form, it kept his interest.
Yeah, that's the
It,
thing.
it,
Like you don't know unless you know him personally. You know, you don't know what the heck was going through his head to want to go and change that, or maybe he thought that the Haney's ring would be better off, or was there a falling out between Butch and he's very dominant. I don't want any part of Butch in me. Like screw him. Like you don't know,
yeah,
right?
no
Unless
one
you're
knows
inside
it.
that circle,
Yes. In
So
in the same fashion, Mickelson, if you tried to curb the way Mickelson played aggressive, he wins more. Everyone says if he would have played more conservative, he would win more majors. Well, you can maybe say that, but now it's not as much fun for him, or he doesn't. You can't just rewire somebody's brain, and so it is. We're left with what it is, and they're both great, and it's not. It's sad to see them both kind of out of the picture now. Um, but we'll have somebody else that'll do something great. That's just the cycle of
like,
everything.
I think so too. But I don't know about that one. I think today's generation, like the younger kids kind of coming up, I don't think they want to sacrifice the amount of sacrifice that Tiger had to do to practice and the hours of practice to do that. I think these guys know that I can make a lot of money hitting a little white ball around and still enjoy life.
Uh-huh.
Right? So it's more about how much money I can make than it is the legacy of the wins and all that other stuff. That's just me.
Yeah, societal shifts can alter that. I think if we have a societal shift, and let's just say that for random example, that the money on the PGA Tour is not the next TV contract is, let's say, is cut in half or even more, and now it becomes more about wins, the way it might have been in the '60s. I think that there could it'd be, let me put it this way, it'd be very, very interesting to see that the next generational talent that comes and challenges what Tiger did. That would be very, I mean, I'm sure you and I are going to be very gray, already a little gray, but very gray when that happens, but it'd be very, very exciting to watch.
Yeah. And again, like I think it takes somebody unbelievably special because I saw something the other day of what Scotty Scheffler would have to do to catch Tiger. It's
Yeah,
just
it's
like
crazy. As much
it's
as he's
crazy.
doing, he'd
So
have to
you
ramp
you
it
you
up.
see that as like, do you really want to go and do that? That's the $1 million question. Like what would be the like what's going to be the end game to the equation? Right? Do I want to give up everything for that? Or can I have some nice balance between sport and life? Right? And then still make a hell of a lot of money hitting a little white ball around a golf course with somebody else carrying my bag.
Because I will say, outside of the injuries and probably not being able to do what he wants physically anymore, outside of playing golf, just enjoying life, he's got to hurt like hell when he gets up in the morning.
Oh yeah, I can't like.
But
I
I
mean, I
would,
feel it a little bit. It's like, oh my god, I
yes,
can't. I haven't done what he's done.
I would say that he gets his life, he just looks happier when he
Hmm.
plays with Charlie in
Yeah.
the was it the PNC?
Hmm.
I think
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
he looks like he enjoys himself more. He doesn't have that edge that you need to have to play at that level that he did.
And I think we all go through it. Like anybody who knows me at a young age, man, like I wanted to tear you apart on the pitch, and I took that mentality, to the golf aspect of it. But like you give me a choice now to go play golf or to go help one of my players on the golf course or in here, like I take option B all day, right? It's no longer about me. It's about the players getting to the level that they want to get to, right?
Uh-huh.
So like I think Tiger is in that aspect as well because he knows his body can't do it. So he knows that he can't put the time, effort, and energy into it. And then even if he did, what's the payoff? Is the payoff trying to get Charlie to where Charlie wants to get to?
Yes.
Right. So to me, like I think Tiger's where I'm at to some extent. It's about passing the torch. It's about helping the next player and getting them to their goals, and then helping the next player to their goals, and the next player to their goals.
What you got anything coming up? You got schools you're teaching, you speaking anywhere at section events or anywhere else, you lectures or
Um,
book
I
coming
don't
out, any of
do.
that fun stuff?
People have asked me about a book. Well, I don't know. Maybe at some point I will. I don't know, to be honest with you. Thought about writing a book. I don't really speak much at the PGA because I'm not in the PGA. So I don't get those invites. I've been asked to speak once, and I went and did it in Michigan. And even the person in charge when we were at lunch, I think he asked me for my PGA number. And I said, "Yeah, I'm not in the PGA." He's like, "What?" I'm not in the PGA. He's like, and then he looked over at the two people who asked me to go. And I go, "Yeah, I never told them I was PGA either." I go, "If you want me to talk to them, that's fine. I'll just go back home. I don't really care."
Butch Harmon's not in the PGA, so I don't know what they're getting their panties in a bunch about.
I'm sorry, but like I never lied. Like they know I'm not in the PGA. But
You
that's a
don't need
big
to be in the
problem.
PGA to be an expert. I mean, there's plenty of them out there.
Yeah, I don't speak much. No, nobody ever asked. So if they would ask, then I would do it a little bit more. What else did you ask?
You got anything? You got camps
I
coming up?
got
You can push
some
out a little
summer
bit for you.
camps coming up. Um, that I'll have that I kind of do here and there. I don't do them too often. Um, Especially in the summer because like teaching and then my training program and then trying to get kids on the golf course. So I kind of treat my place like more of a private academy. So for that, like I try to reserve things more for members. But yeah, I got some. I call them intensives, right? Because they're like a lot of 1 day, 2 days, long days, and it's very small groups. So it's like usually three people with me, and like we work hard at it. This isn't like your typical golf camp where kids are running around having a a blast and stuff like that. So it's a little bit more reserved for players who are more serious about getting better, right? Versus kind of mom and dad are working and the kids got to go do something because they've got to go to work. So yeah, I have some of those coming up, and then uh, doing some golf schools in
And
July, August, September.
people can sign up for those on your website.
The intensives are on my website. The golf schools that will be posted as well as I get a little bit closer. So yeah, I'll be some golf schools in
And tell it. Well, I'll
July,
have it. I'll
August,
have the
September.
one-click links in the summary. But tell everyone where they can follow your website, social media, etc.
Yeah, so the website would be www.dennissalesgolf.com, and then I do some stuff on Twitter, kind of go in spurts with that stuff. But all my social media handles are the same. It's just Dennis Sales Golf. Um, and then I would say like I do more stuff on Instagram, and then I have my little hiatus every now and again where it just gets too time consuming, where I don't post anything, and then I'll kind of get back on it again. So I might do something like that for a little bit. I don't know. We'll see how that
Just do it to
that
keep it
goes.
fun. I always keep in mind when I do stuff with this show when I get bogged down and my brain just gets locked up. I always ask myself, what would this look like if it was simple? And then I'll do that just to keep something going. Like in your golf game, when your swing's off or something, just okay. How do I get the ball somewhere over there?
Yeah, yeah,
Do that because it'll come back. But for now, how do I keep this simple? And if you can't find an answer, then you're good.
yeah, yeah. Agreed.
Dennis, I appreciate it. It's been great. I was like most at first. I just said, well, he's just anti-establishment in golf, and then I followed your stuff, and I was proven wrong. And then after sitting down with you today, I was really proven wrong. So I'm glad I got this chance to do so, and look
Great.
forward to connecting with you again.
Thank you for having me, and hopefully,
Appreciate you
after
coming on.
people listen to this, they'll realize that I'm not very anti-establishment either.
Exactly.
I
No, you're
have my
just the truth. Like I
opinions, right?
said,
Just like everybody else likes to voice theirs, I voice mine, right?
I think you're a truth seeker, is what I would
Yeah, and
put you as.
I would agree, and that's why, like, I am very interested because I've done enough with what I can do and what I have with my, the calculated ground reaction for stuff in gears, right? That I am going to get some plates. Which one I'm going to go to, I don't know yet. I haven't quite decided. Between the two that I'm looking at, which ones that I'm going to go with. But like I said, I found my workaround to make it righties and lefties in here without having a lot of work to do. So that was a little bit more entertaining for me in terms of putting it in here. Like I've had the money sitting in my account for like 4 years now, I think. Yeah, yeah. So I'm either going to spend it or I'm going to go on that or I'm going to spend it someplace else. So
There you go.
I do want force plates. I want to play around with it a little bit more. I have my ideas that, like I said, like I want to kind of dig a little deeper into. Like I said, like Roby was just like, how the hell do you do that? And it's just like, I know how to move. Right. So for me to continue with what I want, I think I need some force plates for me to kind of play around with some stuff a little bit deeper so I can combine now, like, shear forces and things like that with my gears, with my shaft, with the ball, so I can kind of test more of my theories and patterns out. Because again, my guess at what you can measure is kind of what I've said the whole time. You know, moving 30-pound plates back and forth all day between righties and lefties is not something I'm very interested in doing at my age, right? So my workaround has kind of got me happy because now it sounds like, okay, now we're all right. So, and like I've had new turf for this room now sitting on the other side for a little while. And the people are like, when are you going to do that? I go, I haven't decided if I was getting force plates. And then it's just like, have you haven't decided yet? I'm like, I just don't know which ones I'm going to get now. I go, but somebody will win the lottery when I pick because people are going to be like, oh my God, he's got force plates now. Mr. Anti force plate guy's got force plates. I'm like, yep, Mr.
You're
Anti
gonna
force
break
plate
the
guy.
internet when you do
He's
that. You're
got
gonna
force
break the
plates.
internet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then, I might step on some stones afterwards, right? Because like some people might not like what I'm going to say, but now you can't say that I don't have them, and I
Well,
ain't got the data.
at a minimum, it will continue the discussion towards the goal of everybody getting better.
Yeah, and
And
it will.
I don't think anybody can argue that, even if they disagree with you. It's like, well, Dennis will push the conversation, and in the end, it will. Everyone can listen in, and everyone's going to benefit from it.
Yeah, and like that's the goal, right? The goal is for the golfer, right? To make sure that we had a little private conversation earlier. The goal is about the golfer. right? It's about helping them. It's about trying to get what I would just say is real information versus some of that influencer kind of gibberish nonsense that I never see in gears, right? Um, you know, I feel like I'm very smart, and I think the next piece to kind of keep pushing that kind of envelope is to squash the nonsense. Well, you don't have force plates, like kind of sort of do, right? I'll squash that bug real quick, right? Because then I will have them. Now, what are you going to say? I know how to move. Why don't you show me your swing? Why don't you do what I can do, right? And then we can have a real conversation. But since you can't, maybe you should listen a little bit more. Because not only can I do it lefty, I can do it righty. Right? So I think that has a lot of merit to what I teach, right? Again, because if you can't show it, can you really do it? Or is it really right? So I can do anything I want, change swings instantaneously, righty, lefty. I can create speed, not speed. I think how to create speed is a lot different than what people are kind of teaching. And I quite don't agree with some of the stuff that they're teaching in terms of the speed pieces. I think they're missing some important keys. And then, like I said, I need some ground force data stuff to kind of push back against some of the stuff. Well, how do you know? Because you don't have any ground force plate. Now I'm going to push back, and then I'm going to push back because I'm also not buying the stupid cheap ones. So then I'm going to be like, oh, so you have the cheap ones that missing a lot of information, and you're giving me shit. I'm talking to you, okay? you know, because I don't buy anything. It's got to be really good, right? And then the other day I was talking to the Gears guys. That's how that started that conversation. Because what are they're looking at releasing markerless soon,
Yeah, I
right?
had Michael on about a year and a half ago. He said it would be about 2 years that
Yeah,
he had
so
the
that
markerless.
soon. So I need to get another two cameras is what they are suggesting, and I might get a third because they're talking about when you go to the markets, there's got to be certain cameras in certain angles. So I might get more than I got 8 now. So I'm going to look at getting 10 to 12. I want to make sure that if I'm going to do it, I have enough cameras to make sure that it's about as accurate as possible. And then the more cameras you have, the better the capture is already with already the markers. And like I don't have any issues because of how big my room is. So the cameras are positioned really, really well, so I don't lose anything. And that's the nice thing about having a really big room. So I kind of learned that early on before I got my gear system, right? Big is not bad. So, but they did say the other day, like, if I'm you can put two more cameras up. So I'm going to put two cameras along the back wall. And then when they go markerless, they were talking about the need of having a camera position slightly different from up top. I don't want to pull the top cameras down. I'm going to just add more cameras into the mix. So that's what I'll do. I'll just add more cameras into the mix. But for me, like I said, all the technology that I've picked is because I think it's the best, right? I'm not bringing anything into my place that I don't think there's something else better. I love my TrackMan. I love my GC quads. I think they're really good. I have no desire for that IO. I have no desire for the overhead ones. I think there are slight issues with it, in my opinion, to some of the data and how it sees things. I like my Sam Putt Lab. I've got a Capto. I'm on the fence about getting, and I've been on the fence for a while now about getting the Quintec. Still don't really think I need a Quintec yet for the things that I think are a little bit more important in the grand scheme of things. But if I want to buy one, I'll buy one of those too. But like I said, like just haven't seen the need. And then for me, like I said, like I think Sam is really good. And then I got my Capto. So I need to go take something to the golf course because the Sam's just too damn bloody big to be on the golf course with me. I like the Capto stuff. And then I know that is that the Vertex stuff that they have out. I think that's pretty interesting as well. Because it's the sensor that goes on the bottom of the putter, and then eventually that's supposed to talk to the Sam Putt Lab, right? So when that comes out, then I'll kind of look at a little bit of that stuff because that'll be fun because then you can collect some data with people playing, and then the reports would be very similar between the Sam and that. So that's interesting to me versus the Capta, which is very nice, but like the data they don't talk, so it's like very different. So you got to understand how their XYZ stuff and all their graphs and what they're doing is like. But I do like the Capto as well. But like my preference is Sam. I like Sam.
You got it all.
Yeah, you have to. I think. Like if you want to be what I'm doing and keep everything in house, like uh, I think that's a necessity. And again, for me, right? And then for what I want to provide, right? I've always wanted to provide kids the same level of tech and service that tour players get, right? So I'm not skipping out and with launch monitors and buying cheaper stuff. And then I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I don't want cheaper stuff in here, right? Because I could have easily just not bought the tracker, not bought the GC quads and going like some of the other launch monitors. I'm not going to mention names that are out there that are less in cost, right? I'm not interested in that stuff. If I'm bringing something in, it's because it's really good, right? And it's the same thing like when I bring in the clubs, the manufacturers that I have is, I've tested them. I like what they have, right? I think it's good quality, right? I don't need 40 million freaking manufacturers in here. They all make the same stuff to some extent for the level of golfer, right? Just a low, medium, high handicap, right? I don't need 30 manufacturers in here. I just need a few, and then I pick and choose with stuff that I bring in from each manufacturer, right? So that's kind of like what I like. I like trying to provide for the golfers who come here is my thing. You're going to get like a tour level experience, tour level equipment um, that tour players are getting when they go to their manufacturers. That's what I'm trying to provide here for my kids, for the adults that come here, and they seem to really be, liking that kind of experience, right? And
Yeah,
then
you're doing a great job. You wouldn't
anything
have
else
the
that comes out, like force plates, I figured out my walkabout about how to do that stuff. That's coming too. It's just gonna be a matter of which company I'm going to use.
Dennis. Hang out just a bit, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll check you all next time.
Yes. Hey, great. Thank you so much for having me.